They say the mate bond is sacred, unbreakable, written in the stars by the moon goddess herself. But what happens when the man destined to be yours, the most powerful alpha in the kingdom, destroys you 3 days before your bonding ceremony? When he walks out of another woman's bed and expects you to stand beside him anyway? My name is Ava Sterling, and I was supposed to become Luna Queen of the Moonfang Kingdom. Instead, I became the fool who believed in fate. This is the story of how I learned that some bonds are made to be shattered, and some kings need to fall before they can be saved. Stick around until the end, hit that like button, and drop your city in the comments so I know my pack is listening. The scent hit Ava Sterling 3 floors below the Alpha King's private chambers. Jasmine and sweat. Female arousal mixed with Riker's distinct scent of cedar and storm. The combination burned through her nostrils like acid, activating every warning instinct her wolf possessed. Her feet stopped moving on the marble staircase, fingers gripping the banister until her knuckles went bone white. 3 days. They had 3 days until the bonding ceremony. 3 days until she would stand before every pack in the kingdom and accept Riker Blackthorn as her eternal mate. Her wolf howled inside her chest, clawing to break free. The sound that came from Ava's throat was barely human. No. This can't be real. Check. You have to check. But she already knew. The mate bond didn't lie. Even incomplete, even without the final ritual, it sang between them like a living wire. And right now, that wire was screaming betrayal. Ava's legs carried her upward anyway, past the second-floor guard station where 2 warriors quickly averted their eyes, past the third-floor landing where a servant dropped an entire tray of crystal glasses, the sound of shattering echoing through the corridor like broken promises. They knew. Everyone knew. The Alpha King's door was cracked open, just an inch, just enough. Ava pressed her palm against the wood. Her hand was shaking. When did that start? She couldn't remember, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears and the way her wolf was tearing itself apart inside her ribcage. Push it open. See what he's done. The door swung wide. Riker Blackthorn sat on the edge of his massive bed, head in his hands, completely naked except for the sheet pooled around his waist. His black hair was wrecked, running fingers through it, wrecked. His shoulders, those shoulders that had held her just 2 nights ago, whispering promises about forever, were covered in scratch marks. Fresh ones. The woman was in his bathroom. Ava could hear the water running, could smell the expensive soap that belonged to the Luna suite. Her suite. The room she was supposed to move into after the ceremony. Riker's head snapped up. His eyes, ice blue, wolf bright, devastating, met hers across the room. For 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Then Ava's wolf surged forward, and she felt her claws extend, felt her canines punch down through her gums. The taste of blood filled her mouth as she bit through her own lip. Riker was on his feet instantly, hands raised. His voice came out low and careful, the same tone he used to calm hostile alphas during territory negotiations. "Don't you dare," her mind screamed. "Don't you dare use that voice on me." "Riker," she managed to say. The word came out shredded. "Who is she?" "It's not what you think." Ava laughed. The sound was sharp enough to cut. "Not what I think?" "I can smell her on you. I can smell what you did." 3 days, Riker. We had 3 days. The bathroom door opened. The woman who stepped out was stunning. Auburn hair, green eyes, curves wrapped in one of Riker's dress shirts. She froze when she saw Ava, but there was something wrong with her expression. Not guilt, not embarrassment, fear. "Who are you?" Ava demanded. The woman's mouth opened, closed. Her eyes darted to Riker. "Get out," Riker said. The Alpha command in his voice made every wolf in a 100-yard radius instinctively bare their throats. "Now." The woman grabbed her clothes and ran. She didn't look at Ava as she passed, didn't speak, just disappeared into the corridor like a ghost. Ava and Riker stood alone in the wreckage of everything they were supposed to be. "Listen to me," Riker said. His jaw was tight, muscles coiled like he was preparing for a fight. "You need to let me explain." "Explain?" Ava took a step forward. Her claws left marks in the stone floor. "You want to explain why you betrayed our bond? Why you humiliated me in front of the entire kingdom? Why you—" "There are things happening that you don't understand. Then make me understand." The words came out as a roar. Power rolled off Ava in waves, her alpha bloodline surging to the surface. She was the daughter of the Highland Pack's former leaders, born from a line of warriors who bowed to no one. The mate bond might have connected her to Riker, but it didn't make her weak. It made her dangerous. Riker's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to meet hers. For a moment, the air between them crackled with challenge, with the kind of dominance display that could end in blood. Then Riker did something Ava never expected. He lowered his eyes. An Alpha King, submitting. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Protecting you." His voice was raw. "Even if it costs me everything." The door behind Ava exploded inward. Councilman Garrett strode into the room with 4 guards at his back. The old wolf's face was twisted with barely concealed satisfaction, like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. "Well," he announced loudly, performing for the guards and the servants who had conveniently appeared in the hallway. "I suppose the rumors are true. The Alpha King has dishonored his mate bond." Ava's wolf snarled. This wasn't grief on Garrett's face. This was opportunity. "Councilman," Riker said carefully. He'd wrapped the sheet around his waist but made no other attempt at modesty. "This is a private matter." "Private?" Garrett's laugh was acid. "You made it public the moment you bedded another woman 3 days before your bonding ceremony. You violated sacred law, boy, the kind of violation that demands consequences." The guards shifted behind Garrett. None of them met Riker's eyes. Ava's mind was racing. Something was wrong. Garrett was supposed to be Riker's ally, one of the old guard who supported the Blackthorn line. Why was he here? Why now? Unless this was never about betrayal at all. The Highland girl deserves better than this, Garrett continued, turning to Ava with theatrical sympathy. "You deserve a mate who honors you, child, not a king who treats the sacred bond like a transaction he can break whenever convenient." "Don't," Riker growled. "Don't use her." "Use me?" Ava stepped between them, her wolf still riding just beneath her skin. "I can speak for myself, Councilman." Garrett's eyes glittered. "Of course. Then perhaps you'll speak at tomorrow's emergency council session, the one where we'll discuss whether this king is fit to rule." The words landed like a bomb. Ava's head whipped toward Riker. His face had gone carefully blank, but she could see the calculation behind his eyes. Could see him running through strategies, alliances, potential casualties. "You can't call a council session without the Alpha King's approval," Ava said. Garrett smiled. "I can when the Alpha King has committed treason against the mate bond." Ancient law, girl, written long before the Blackthorn line took power. When an Alpha violates his sacred duty, the Council can vote to remove him. "This is a coup," Riker said quietly. "You planned this." "I planned nothing." Garrett spread his hands innocently. "You did this yourself when you chose to dishonor your mate. I'm simply upholding our laws." The guards still hadn't moved, still hadn't reached for weapons. But Ava could feel the tension in the room like a living thing, coiled and waiting. Riker's eyes met hers across the space. In that moment, Ava saw something she'd never seen before in the Alpha King's face. Desperation. "Tomorrow," Garrett said cheerfully. "Dawn. The full council will convene. We'll see what your people think of a king who can't keep his word." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Sterling, you're welcome to testify. I'm sure you have plenty to say about your mate's loyalty." The door closed behind him with a hollow boom. Ava and Riker stood in silence. She should leave, should turn around and walk away from this disaster, from this man who destroyed everything. Her wolf was screaming at her to run, to get as far from this betrayal as possible. Instead, she spoke. "Tell me the truth. All of it. Or I testify against you tomorrow and let Garrett have his coup." Riker's shoulders sagged. He suddenly looked years older, the weight of his crown finally showing. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "If I tell you everything, they'll kill you." Ava's laugh was bitter. "You already did, Riker. You killed me the moment you touched her." "No." His eyes snapped up, blazing with intensity. "You don't understand. The woman, Celine, she's connected to something bigger, a plan that's been in motion for months. If they know that you know, if they think for 1 second that you're a threat." "Who? Who's they? I can't. Tell me." The command in her voice made Riker's wolf respond instinctively, made him bare his throat despite every instinct as an Alpha King. When he spoke, the words came out hollow. "The Northern Alliance. They've infiltrated the council. They're planning to overthrow the kingdom, and they needed me compromised, needed me weak. Celine was planted here 6 months ago with one job: seduce me, make sure the bond between us was damaged beyond repair before the ceremony. Ava's breath caught. Why? Because a Luna makes a king untouchable. The mate bond amplifies power, creates a shield nothing can break. But a divided king? A king fighting with his mate, distracted by personal chaos? Vulnerable. So you slept with her to stop a war? I slept with her because they were going to massacre the Highland Pack if I didn't. Riker's voice cracked. Your people, Ava. Your blood family. They showed me the attack plan, showed me how they'd burn your territory to ash. All I had to do was betray you. Just once. Just enough to create doubt. Ava's mind was spinning. This was insane. Impossible. But she could hear the truth in his voice, could feel it through the mate bond that still connected them despite everything. You should have told me, she whispered. I couldn't risk it. If anyone suspected you knew, they'd kill you to ensure the plan succeeded. At least this way, you'd be angry, safe. You'd leave before the real violence started. A howl echoed from somewhere outside the palace. Then another, then a dozen more, rising in a chorus of alarm. Riker's head snapped toward the window. His body went rigid. No, not yet. They weren't supposed to move until after the ceremony. What? The palace shuddered. Somewhere below them, someone screamed. Not human. Wolf. The sound of a warrior dying. Riker was across the room in an instant, throwing open his wardrobe and pulling out weapons. Clothes. His movements were precise, controlled, years of military training taking over. Stay here, he commanded. Bar the door after I leave. Don't open it for anyone except... The window exploded inward. Glass erupted across the room as a massive gray wolf crashed through, its jaws already open, already lunging for Riker's throat. Ava didn't think, didn't hesitate. She shifted mid-leap, her bones cracking and reforming in the space between heartbeats. Her wolf, silver-white, larger than any female alpha had a right to be, met the attacker in midair. They collided with enough force to crack the stone floor, a tangle of fangs and claws and rage. The gray wolf was strong, trained. It twisted beneath her, claws raking across her ribs, teeth snapping toward her throat. But Ava was Highland Pack. Born in the mountains, raised by warriors who taught her that mercy was a luxury predators couldn't afford. She went for the throat. The gray wolf's blood was hot in her mouth, tasted like violence and treachery. She clenched her jaws and twisted, felt the vertebrae separate, felt the life drain out of her enemy in a rush. The body went limp beneath her. Ava shifted back, naked and shaking, blood streaming from the gashes across her ribs. Riker was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. More howls outside. Closer now. You can't stay here, Riker said. He'd pulled on pants, strapped knives to his belt. His eyes were pure wolf now, glowing in the darkness. They're coming for both of us. Then we fight. Ava grabbed the shirt the woman, Celine, had left behind and pulled it on. It fell to mid-thigh, barely decent, but she didn't care. Where's your war room? Ava? Where? He told her. They ran. The palace was chaos. Servants screaming, warriors fighting, blood pooling in corridors that had been pristine an hour ago. Ava counted at least 20 dead before they reached the main staircase. Most were palace guards, loyal wolves who'd died defending a king they thought had betrayed them. This is the coup, Ava realized. Garrett wasn't planning to remove you through a vote. He was planning to remove you with a massacre. Smart girl, Riker muttered. He'd acquired a sword from somewhere, the blade already wet with enemy blood. The council session was cover. Make everyone think this was legal, civilized, then attack when the kingdom's divided. They hit the war room 3 minutes later. The heavy doors were already open, already breached. Inside, Councilman Garrett stood over the body of Commander Hayes, Riker's head of security. The old man's sword was clean. He hadn't done the killing himself. The dozen warriors surrounding him had. Well, Garrett said pleasantly, the king and his humiliated mate. How touching that you die together. Riker's growl was pure alpha. This kingdom will bury you, Garrett. This kingdom will thank me. Garrett gestured and his warriors advanced, forming a semicircle around the door. I'm removing a weak king and his disgrace of a Luna. By tomorrow, The Northern Alliance will control Moonfang. We'll finally have leadership that understands strength. Ava's wolf surged forward, her canines punched down. Funny thing about disgrace, Councilman. She let power roll off her in waves, let them feel exactly what Highland Pack blood meant. It tends to fight back. Riker moved first. What happened next was violence poetry. The Alpha King was a legend for a reason, trained since childhood to be a living weapon. He moved through Garrett's warriors like a storm, his sword singing, his wolf roaring beneath his skin. But there were too many. Ava shifted again, her silver wolf leaping into the fray. She took down 2 warriors before they knew she'd moved, her jaws closing around throats, her claws opening bellies. Still too many. A blade caught Riker across the back. He roared, spinning, taking the attacker's head off with one swing. But another warrior was already there, and another, and they were pushing him back toward the wall. Ava tried to reach him. A massive brown wolf blocked her path, teeth snapping for her face. She dodged, twisted, felt claws rake across her shoulder. Pain exploded through her, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Riker went down. The sound he made, shock, pain, rage, cut through Ava like a blade. She saw the spear in his side, saw the blood, saw Garrett standing over him with something dark and triumphant in his eyes. No, the word came out as a howl. Not human, not entirely wolf, something older, something that made every warrior in the room freeze. Power erupted from Ava Sterling like a shockwave. Later she wouldn't remember shifting back, wouldn't remember moving. All she'd remember was standing over Riker's body with 5 dead warriors at her feet and Garrett's shocked expression as he stumbled backward. "The mate bond," he whispered. "You completed it." Ava looked down at her hands. They were glowing, actually glowing with silver light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, with Riker's heartbeat. Impossible. The bonding ceremony hadn't happened. They hadn't exchanged vows, but the bond was there anyway. Fully formed, burning between them like a star. Riker's hand found hers. His fingers were slick with blood, but his grip was iron. "Ava," he gasped. "Run! No, run! If they capture you—" I said no. More warriors poured through the door. These ones wearing the crest of the Northern Alliance openly, not bothering to hide anymore. Garrett was backing toward the window, toward escape. "You've lost," he called. "The kingdom is ours. You're both dead. You just don't know it yet." Then Ava spoke, and her voice carried the weight of every Highland Alpha who'd come before her. "Councilman Garrett, by the authority of my blood and the mate bond I share with your king, I invoke ancient challenge, single combat, you and me. Winner takes the kingdom." The room went dead silent. Garrett's face went pale. "That law hasn't been invoked in 200 years. Then I guess you're about to make history." Ava felt Riker's hand tighten on hers, felt his protest through the bond, ignored it. "Face me, traitor, or spend the rest of your pathetic life known as the coward who ran from a female alpha." Garrett's jaw worked. His eyes darted to his warriors, to the window, to anything that might offer escape. But he was trapped. Refusing an ancient challenge meant automatic loss of honor, automatic exile. Everything he'd worked for, gone. He drew his sword. "Fine. Let's end this." Ava released Riker's hand and stood. The wounds across her body were screaming, but she pushed the pain down, locked it away. She had no weapon, no armor, nothing but her wolf and the bond burning in her chest. It would have to be enough. The warriors formed a circle. Ancient challenge law. No interference, no mercy. Fight until one opponent submitted or died. Garrett attacked first. He was fast for an old wolf. His blade whistled through the air where Ava's throat had been a second before. She dodged, twisted, felt the wind from his follow-up strike. "Too slow," Garrett hissed. "Just like your parents were. Remember them? Remember how they begged before the Northern Alliance burned them alive?" Ava's vision went red. She didn't shift. Didn't need to. Her claws extended and she ducked under Garrett's next swing, drove her hand up into his ribcage, felt bones crack. Garrett screamed. He swung wildly. The blade caught Ava across the arm, laid it open from shoulder to elbow. Blood poured down her skin, but she barely felt it. All she felt was rage, pure, focused, deadly. "This is for them," she snarled. She caught Garrett's sword arm, twisted. The bone snapped with a sound like a gunshot. His sword clattered to the floor. Ava's hand closed around his throat. She lifted him off his feet, watched his face turn purple as he clawed uselessly at her arm. "Submit," she commanded. "Never." "Submit or die." Garrett's eyes rolled back. His body went limp. She dropped him. The councilman crumpled to the floor, gasping, broken. The warriors wearing Northern Alliance crests stood frozen, caught between orders and instinct. Ava turned to face them. Blood ran down her body in streams, but she stood straight, shoulders back, every inch an alpha. "Anyone else?" Her voice carried across the room. "Anyone else want to challenge the Luna Queen of Moonfang?" Silence. Then one by one, the warriors dropped to their knees, submitted, bared their throats. Ava let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Behind her, Riker made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. She turned to find him trying to stand, one hand pressed against the spear wound in his side. "Stay down, you idiot," she snapped. "You're half dead." "So are you." His smile was pained but real. "Looks good on you, though." Against every instinct, Ava felt her lips twitch. "This isn't funny." "Kind of funny." His eyes met hers. "You just conquered my kingdom for me." "Our kingdom." The words came out before she could stop them. "If we're doing this bond thing, we're doing it right." Riker's expression softened. "Even?" Ava looked around at the carnage, at the bodies, at Garrett gasping on the floor, at the warriors who'd bent their necks to her will. "Even," she agreed. Then the palace shook again, harder this time. The sound of stone cracking echoed from somewhere deep below. "What?" "The dungeons!" Riker gasped. "They're breaching the dungeons. Ava, the prisoners down there." "Are what?" "Are the rest of the Northern Alliance Command. We captured them 2 weeks ago. If they get free—" The wall exploded. Dust and debris filled the room. When it cleared, Ava saw them. Wolves. Dozens of them. Pouring through the breach like a flood. Their eyes were wild, feral. These weren't warriors. These were killers. And at their head stood a woman Ava recognized. Celine. The woman from Riker's chambers. But different now. Harder. Her eyes glowing amber with alpha power. "Hello, mate," Celine purred. "Miss me?" Riker's entire body went rigid. "You." "Me." Celine smiled. "Did you think sleeping with me was your idea? That you were sacrificing yourself to save the Highland Pack?" She laughed. "You were so easy to manipulate, my king, so desperate to be the hero." The truth crashed over Ava like ice water. "The Highland Pack," she whispered. "The threat to my people was a lie." Celine confirmed. "There never was an attack plan. Just a carefully crafted illusion designed to make Riker betray his bond willingly, to break him from the inside." She turned her glowing eyes on Ava. "And it worked. He's ruined. You're ruined. And now the Northern Alliance takes what should have been ours all along." The wolves behind her howled in unison. The sound was deafening. Ava felt Riker slump against her. The spear wound was bleeding faster now. He was fading. "Can you fight?" she asked quietly. His hand found hers again. "Not well." His smile was grim. "But I can die protecting you. That should count for something." "No one's dying." "Ava." "Be realistic." "I said no one's dying." She stepped forward, faced Celine and her army. Let power roll off her in waves. Let them feel what the mate bond truly meant when completed between two alpha bloodlines. "You want this kingdom?" she called. "You go through me first." Celine's smile widened, gladly. The wolves attacked. What happened next would be told in stories for generations. How a wounded alpha king and his newly bonded mate stood against an army. How they fought back to back, blood-soaked and half-dead but unbreakable. How the palace guards rallied to their defense, inspired by a Luna who refused to yield. How they lost anyway. There were just too many. For every enemy that fell, 3 more took their place. Ava's body was giving out. She'd lost too much blood, taken too many wounds. Even the bond couldn't keep her standing forever. She went down to one knee. Riker collapsed beside her, the spear wound finally too much. His breathing was ragged. His eyes were starting to dim. Celine stood over them both, sword raised. "Any last words?" she asked. Ava looked at Riker, at the man who destroyed her, saved her, fought beside her, at her mate. Yeah, Ava said. She gripped Riker's hand. One word. Oh? What's that? Ava smiled. Blood on her teeth, fire in her eyes. Duck! The ceiling exploded. Warriors poured through the breach from above. Highland Pack warriors. Ava's people. Led by someone she thought she'd never see again. Her cousin Marcus, alpha of the Highland Pack, alive. You really thought we'd miss your bonding ceremony, little cousin? Marcus roared. His massive brown wolf crashed into the nearest enemy, teeth flashing. The whole pack's here. Let's clean house. The tide turned. What followed was systematic destruction. The Highland warriors were fresh, rested, and absolutely merciless. They'd been traveling for 3 days to reach the palace in time for the ceremony, arrived to find the kingdom under siege, and decided to end it. Celine tried to run, made it 5 steps before Marcus caught her by the throat. She died quickly, cleaner than she deserved. When it was over, when the last enemy had either surrendered or fallen, the war room was silent except for labored breathing. Ava stayed on her knees, holding Riker's hand. He was still breathing, barely. Healers, she called. Her voice was raw. Anyone. Get me healers now. They came. Palace healers and Highland healers, swarming around Riker with supplies and magic in desperate urgency. Ava wouldn't let go of his hand. Not when they pulled out the spear. Not when he screamed. Not when his eyes rolled back and his heartbeat, their heartbeat, stuttered and almost stopped. Not when Marcus gently tried to pull her away. He's going to make it, her cousin said quietly. The bond will keep him anchored. But you need medical attention too, Ava. You're still holding his hand. Marcus sighed but didn't argue. Just sat beside her in the blood and debris, keeping watch like Highland Pack always did. Keeping family safe. Hours later, when Riker finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Ava. Still there. Still bleeding. Still gripping his hand like a lifeline. Hey, he rasped. Hey, yourself, did we win? Ava's laugh came out as a sob. Yeah, we won. Good. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Does this mean you forgive me? Ava was quiet for a long moment. Ask me again, she finally said. When you're not dying. Deal. Outside the window, dawn was breaking. The blood moon had passed. The kingdom still stood. And somewhere in the rubble and ruin, a bond burned bright. Unbroken. But in the dungeons far below, in a cell that should have been empty, something stirred. A shadow moved across walls that had held prisoners just hours before, and in the darkness, a voice whispered, Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. The real war was just beginning. The healers worked on Riker for 6 hours straight. Ava watched every minute of it, watched them cut away dead tissue, watched them pack the spear wound with herbs that made him scream even unconscious, watched his heart stop twice and restart both times with magic that left the healers sweating and pale. She didn't let go of his hand once. Marcus stood guard at the door. Her cousin had grown since she'd last seen him, broader across the shoulders, harder in the eyes. War did that. Leadership did that. He'd taken over the Highland Pack after her parents died and turned grief into something sharp enough to cut. Right now, he was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You should rest, he said quietly. No. Ava. I said no. The head healer, an ancient woman named Mora, finally stepped back from Riker's body. Her hands were stained red to the elbows. The spear was poisoned, she announced. Nightshade extract mixed with silver dust, designed to kill an alpha slowly, painfully. But he'll live? Ava's voice came out sharper than she intended. Mora's eyes were unreadable. If the bond holds, if he has something worth fighting for. She looked at Ava's hand, still gripping Riker's. I think he does. The old woman left. The other healers followed, moving quietly, exhausted. Marcus waited until they were alone before speaking. We need to talk about what happens next, little cousin. Ava's jaw tightened. Not now. Yes, now. He moved closer, keeping his voice low. The kingdom just watched their alpha king get gutted because he was too busy playing spy to trust his own mate. Half the council is dead. The Northern Alliance infiltrated so deep we're still finding bodies. And you? He gestured at her blood-soaked clothes, her untreated wounds. You completed a mate bond in the middle of a coup and then challenged a councilman to single combat. You think that's going to just smooth over? What are you saying? I'm saying the other packs are going to ask questions about Riker's judgment, about whether he's fit to rule, about whether a king who can be manipulated that easily deserves loyalty. Marcus's expression was grim. They're going to test you both. Soon. Let them. You don't understand. This isn't just about strength anymore. It's about legitimacy. Trust. The kind of things you can't win with teeth and claws. Ava finally looked at him. Really looked. There was something calculating in her cousin's eyes now. Something that reminded her uncomfortably of the political creatures she'd watched circle Riker's court for months. You want something? She said flatly. What is it? Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I want to make sure my cousin survives what's coming. The Highland Pack stands with you, always. But we need guarantees. What kind of guarantees? The kind where you don't end up dead because your mate made another strategic miscalculation. Marcus crossed his arms. Riker's strong. I won't deny that. But he's reckless. Arrogant. He thought he could handle the Northern Alliance alone and nearly got both of you killed. Next time, you might not be so lucky. So you want me to what? Leave him? I want you to protect yourself. Remember who you are. You're not just his Luna. You're Highland Pack. My family. Our alpha blood doesn't bow to anyone, not even a king. The words landed like stones. Ava felt something cold settle in her chest. You think I've forgotten. I think you almost died for a man who lied to you, who broke your trust to play hero. Marcus moved closer, his voice dropping. I think the mate bond makes people stupid, makes them weak. I don't want that for you. Ava opened her mouth to respond when Riker's fingers twitched in hers. Both of them went silent. Riker's eyes opened, slowly. His pupils were blown wide from whatever Mora had given him for the pain, but his gaze was clear enough. It tracked from Ava to Marcus and back again. Alpha Marcus, he rasped. His voice was shredded. Didn't know you were visiting. Wouldn't miss my cousin's bonding ceremony, Marcus replied smoothly, even if it did turn into a bloodbath. How are you feeling? Like I got stabbed. Riker tried to sit up. Failed. Ava had to grip his shoulder to keep him from tearing his stitches. He looked at her. You're hurt. I'm fine. You're bleeding through your shirt. I said I'm fine. The command in her voice made Riker's wolf respond instinctively, made him bare his throat just slightly. The gesture was unconscious, but Marcus saw it, saw the way power shifted between them. Interesting, her cousin murmured. Very interesting. What? Ava snapped. Nothing. Marcus smiled his politician smile. Just noting that you seem to have your mate well in hand. That's good. You'll need that control for what's coming. Riker's eyes sharpened despite the drugs. What's coming? The blood moon gathering? Marcus said it casually, but Ava felt the words like a punch. 2 weeks from now. Every pack in the kingdom will be there. They'll want answers about the coup, about the Northern Alliance, about why their Alpha King failed to protect them from infiltration. I didn't fail, Riker said quietly. Didn't you? Garrett was your father's most trusted advisor. Celine lived in this palace for 6 months. The Northern Alliance had operatives in your guard, your council, your kitchens, and you noticed none of it until they had a spear in your ribs. Marcus's voice was mild, but his words cut deep. The other alphas will see that as weakness. Then they can challenge me. They will. Marcus met Riker's eyes. All of them. You're wounded, compromised. This is the perfect time to test a king's strength. And if you fall, he glanced at Ava, your mate falls with you. The room went very quiet. Ava felt Riker's hand tighten on hers, felt the bond between them pulse with something that might have been fear or fury or both. You're threatening us, Riker said softly. I'm preparing you. Marcus straightened. The Highland Pack will support you at the gathering. Publicly, loudly. But Ava needs to be ready to stand on her own if you go down. She needs to be more than just your Luna. She's already more than that, Riker growled. Then prove it. Make her your equal. Give her real power, not just a title. Marcus headed for the door. 2 weeks, cousin. Get ready. He left. Ava and Riker sat in silence. Your cousin is a piece of work, Riker finally said. He's protecting his pack. Ava pulled her hand free and stood. Started pacing. She needed to move, needed to think. Can you blame him? Can you? The question hung between them. Ava kept pacing, feeling wounds pull with every step. Her body was screaming at her to rest, but her mind wouldn't shut off. "You lied to me," she said quietly. "Even if you thought you were protecting me, even if you thought you were saving my people, you lied." "I know. You made me look weak. Made me look like the obedient little mate who'd accept anything her king did." The words were coming faster now, pushed by anger she'd been holding back since she first caught Celine's scent. "You humiliated me in front of the entire kingdom. Do you understand that? Do you understand what that cost?" "Yes." "No." Ava spun to face him. "You don't. You're a king, an alpha. When people see you with another woman, they think you're powerful, virile, taking what you want. But me, they see me as pathetic, as the weak Luna who couldn't keep her mate satisfied. That's not true. It doesn't matter if it's true. It's what they believe. And belief is power in this world. You taught me that." She laughed bitterly. "Guess I was a good student." Riker tried to sit up again. This time he made it halfway, teeth gritted against pain. "Ava, look at me." She did. Hated herself for it. "I was wrong," he said, "about all of it. I should have trusted you with the truth, should have known you were strong enough to handle it. Instead, I tried to protect you like you were some fragile thing that needed sheltering." His eyes were blazing now, despite the weakness in his body. "I won't make that mistake again." "Words are easy. Then let me show you." His hand extended toward her. "At the gathering, stand beside me. Not behind me. Not as my accessory. As my equal. Show every pack in this kingdom that you're not just the Luna. You're the future." Ava stared at his hand, at the man who'd destroyed her trust and saved her life in the same night. The mate bond hummed between them, alive and insistent, pulling her toward him. She didn't take his hand. "Not yet," she said. "You're going to have to earn that." Something like respect flickered across Riker's face. "Fair enough. What do you need from me? Time? Space? Proof that you actually see me as a partner instead of a problem to manage." Ava headed for the door. "And get better. Because Marcus is right about one thing. The other packs are going to come for you. For us. And we need to be ready. Where are you going? To see what's left of your kingdom." She left before he could respond. Left before the bond could drag her back to his side. Left before she did something stupid like forgive him too soon. The palace was a disaster. Ava spent the next 3 days cataloging the damage. 43 dead. 26 wounded badly enough they might not recover. Half the council chambers destroyed. The throne room scarred with claw marks and blood that the servants couldn't quite scrub out. And everywhere she looked, wolves watched her. Some with respect. They'd seen her fight, seen her challenge Garrett, seen her refuse to break even when bleeding out. But others looked at her with calculation, with ambition, with the kind of hunger that came from seeing weakness at the top of the food chain. She heard the whispers, heard them speculate about whether Riker would survive his wounds, about whether the kingdom needed a stronger alpha, about whether a Luna who couldn't keep her mate loyal deserved her position. Ava ignored them, mostly. On the 4th day, she called a meeting of the remaining council members. 7 old wolves who'd survived the coup by either luck or strategic neutrality. They gathered in what was left of the war room, sitting on benches salvaged from the debris. Luna Sterling, the oldest one, began. His name was Aldrich, a white-haired wolf with shrewd eyes. "We're honored by your summons. Skip the flattery." Ava stood at the head of the table where Riker usually sat. "The Alpha King is recovering. In his absence, I'm taking point on security and reconstruction. Anyone have a problem with that?" Silence. "Good." She pulled out maps, reports, lists she'd compiled over the last few days. "We've identified 32 Northern Alliance sympathizers still in the palace. Most are low-level servants and guards who claim they were coerced. Some are true believers who need to be dealt with. I want trials. Public ones. Fast ones." "And the punishment for treason?" Aldrich asked carefully. Ava met his eyes. "Death or exile. Their choice. We show mercy once. Only once." The council shifted uneasily. A younger wolf named Cade spoke up. "With respect, Luna, that's harsh. Some of these people have families, children. Then they should have thought about that before helping invaders murder their packmates." Ava's voice was flat. I'm not interested in being soft right now, Councilman. I'm interested in making sure the next person who thinks about betraying this kingdom knows exactly what it costs. Aldrich smiled slightly. Very pragmatic, Luna. Your father would be proud. The words hurt more than Ava expected. She covered it by moving to the next topic. The Blood Moon Gathering. We need a strategy. Marcus says the other alphas will challenge Riker's authority. They will, Aldrich confirmed. Alpha Thorn of the Eastern Reach has already sent word that he intends to question the king's competence publicly. Alpha Vera of the Coastal Pack will likely follow his lead. They smell blood in the water. Then we need to show them strength. Ava traced the map with one finger. The gathering is neutral ground, no formal challenges allowed. But that doesn't mean we can't make a statement. What kind of statement? Kate asked. The kind where I fight in Riker's place. The room went dead silent. Luna, Aldrich said carefully, that's unprecedented. The blood moon rituals are sacred, ancient. A king must prove himself. Sending a mate to fight his battles would show that he trusts me, that we're united, that the kingdom has two leaders, not one. Ava leaned forward. Or would you rather have Riker try to fight when he's barely healed, when every alpha there will know he's compromised? The logic was sound, but she could see the resistance in their faces. Old wolves hated change, hated anything that disrupted tradition. There's another way, a voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Riker stood there, leaning heavily on a cane, his skin still too pale. Mora hovered behind him, looking furious that he'd left bed. You shouldn't be up, Ava said flatly. Probably not. Riker limped into the room, each step deliberate. But I'm not going to lie in bed while my mate plans a war. He looked at the council. She's right. About all of it. The trials, the punishment, the statement we need to make. But there's a better option than either of us fighting alone. Which is? Aldrich asked. We fight together. Riker met Ava's eyes across the table. The old laws allow for dual challenges. Two alphas fighting as one unit. It's rare. Dangerous. But if we pull it off, we prove that the king and Luna of this kingdom are unbreakable. That requires perfect synchronization, Aldrich said slowly. Perfect trust. One mistake, and you both die. Then we don't make mistakes. Riker's voice was iron despite his weakness. We have 2 weeks. We train. We prepare. And we show every pack in this kingdom that Moonfang doesn't break. Ava studied him. Studied the determination in his eyes. The way he held himself despite obvious pain. The mate bond sang between them, urging her to trust him. She'd spent 4 days proving she didn't need him. Maybe it was time to prove they were stronger together. All right, she said. We do it your way. But I have conditions. Name them. We train every day. No exceptions. No holding back because you're injured. Ava moved around the table toward him. And you start telling me everything. Every secret, every plan, every threat you're aware of. No more protecting me by keeping me in the dark. Riker's smile was sharp. Deal. He extended his hand. This time she took it. The bond flared between them, bright and fierce. The council wolves averted their eyes from the intimacy of it. Training started the next morning. Mora tried to stop them. Tried to insist that Riker needed at least another week of bed rest. Riker ignored her and headed to the training grounds anyway. By noon, he was bleeding through his bandages. Again, Ava said. Riker circled her slowly, cane abandoned, moving on sheer willpower. They'd been sparring for 3 hours. Not with weapons. Not yet. Just hand to hand, testing their ability to read each other's movements. He lunged. She countered. Their bodies flowed together, part dance, part violence. The bond helped, whispering his intentions half a second before he moved, but it wasn't perfect. They'd collided hard twice already, leaving both of them bruised. You're favoring your left side, Ava said, because I have a hole in my right side. Then compensate. If we're doing this, we need to move like one person, not 2 people trying not to trip each other. Easy for you to say. You're not half dead. You will be if you don't focus. They went again. This time Riker anticipated her feint, moved with her instead of against her. Their arms locked, bodies pressed close, both breathing hard. Better, Ava admitted. High praise from the Luna. Riker's eyes were bright despite his exhaustion. Think we can pull this off? Ask me in 2 weeks. They trained every day, morning until night. pushing past pain and fatigue and the screaming protests of Riker's healing body. Moore eventually stopped trying to intervene, just showed up twice a day to change his bandages and glare at both of them. By the end of the first week, they could anticipate each other's movements 90% of the time. By the end of the second week, they moved like a single organism with two bodies. The night before the gathering, Ava stood alone on the palace balcony. The blood moon was rising, massive and red, casting everything in crimson light. Somewhere below, the kingdom was preparing to travel to neutral ground, packing supplies, weapons, formal clothes for rituals that were older than anyone could remember. Ava felt the weight of what was coming like a physical thing pressing down on her chest. "Can't sleep?" Riker's voice came from behind her. She didn't turn. "No." He moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The spear wound had healed enough that he could walk without a cane now, but she could still see pain in the way he moved, could still smell the faint bitterness of healing herbs under his skin. "We're going to be fine," he said quietly. "You don't know that." "No, but I believe it." He turned to look at her. "I believe in you." Ava's throat tightened. "You barely know me, the real me. All we've had is chaos and violence and a bond neither of us asked for. I know you're the woman who saved my life, who fought an army when she should have run, who stood up to Marcus and the council and me when everyone else was bowing their heads." Riker's hand found hers. "I know that's enough." "Is it?" Ava finally looked at him. "Because tomorrow every pack in this kingdom is going to judge whether we deserve to rule them, whether we're strong enough, united enough. And if they decide we're not, then we show them they're wrong." The confidence in his voice steadied something in her chest, made the weight bearable. They stood together in the blood moon light, watching the kingdom prepare for war. Tomorrow would determine everything. Tomorrow they would prove they were unbreakable, or tomorrow they would die trying. The gathering grounds were ancient, a massive clearing carved into the heart of the wildwood, neutral territory where no pack claimed dominance. Stone circles marked the ritual spaces. Ancient trees formed a natural arena. The ground was stained with centuries of blood from challenges, ceremonies, executions. Every pack in the kingdom was there. Hundreds of wolves gathered in their territory clusters, wearing their colors, carrying their banners. The air was thick with tension and competing dominance displays. Ava and Riker arrived last, deliberately. They'd planned their entrance down to the second, designed to remind everyone who held power. They walked into the clearing side by side, not with Riker ahead and Ava following, not with her trailing behind like an accessory, side by side, equals. Every eye turned to watch them. Ava wore black, fighting leathers reinforced with silver studs, boots built for speed, hair bound back severe and uncompromising. She looked like exactly what she was, a warrior queen who'd earned her position in blood. Riker matched her in black and silver, the official colors of the Blackthorn line. His crown sat heavy on his head, marking him as king, but Ava wore a circlet of silver that marked her as more than just his mate. She wore the Luna's crown, the symbol of equal rule. The crowd murmured, whispered, some with approval, most with shock. Alpha Thorn stepped forward from the Eastern Reach delegation. He was massive, scarred across half his face, old enough to remember when Riker's grandfather ruled. His voice carried across the clearing. "Alpha King Riker Blackthorn, you stand accused of failing to protect this kingdom from infiltration, of allowing enemies to penetrate your court, your council, your very bedchamber. How do you answer these charges?" "I answer that I'm standing," Riker said calmly, "despite every attempt to kill me. And the traitors who infiltrated my kingdom are dead, their conspiracy destroyed, their allies exposed. By luck, not skill." Alpha Vera of the Coastal Pack moved forward. She was lean, deadly, with eyes like chips of ice. "You were manipulated, deceived, proven weak. Why should we follow a king who can be played like a puppet? Because I learned from it." Riker's voice hardened. "Every mistake I made, I've paid for in blood. Every failure, I've corrected. I'm not claiming perfection. I'm claiming strength through survival." "Pretty words," Thorn growled, "but words don't prove worth. Action does. I challenge your right to rule." The crowd went silent. Ava felt her wolf surge forward, felt power crackle across her skin, felt Riker's hand find hers and squeeze once. Steady. You're within your rights, Riker said. Under ancient law, any alpha can challenge the king during the Blood Moon gathering. Do you understand what that means, what you're asking for? I'm asking for single combat. Thorn smiled, showing fangs. You win. I bend the knee. I win. I take your crown. No. The word came from Ava. She stepped forward, felt every eye shift to her. You challenge our right to rule, not his. Ours. You want the crown? You go through both of us, Vera laughed. A Luna fighting her mate's battles? How progressive, and how weak, not fighting for him. Ava let her power roll out, let them feel exactly what Highland Packblood meant. Fighting with him. Dual challenge. Ancient law allows it. You know it does. The crowd was roaring now, shocked, excited. No one had invoked dual challenge in living memory. It was the stuff of legends, dangerous and deadly and spectacular. Thorn's eyes gleamed. Fine. You want to die together? I'll accommodate you, but I choose my partner. He turned. Alpha Vera. Stand with me. The Coastal Pack Alpha moved to his side, predatory and eager. 4 alphas, 2 teams, 1 crown. Let's begin. The ritual space was simple, a circle marked in white stones. Inside that circle, anything was permitted. Claws, teeth, weapons, magic. The only rule was that the fight ended when one team submitted or died. No one expected submission. Ava and Riker stood on one side of the circle, Thorn and Vera on the other. The crowd formed a living wall around them, hundreds of wolves pressing close, their combined scent creating a fog of anticipation and bloodlust. The blood moon hung overhead, massive and red. A horn sounded. The challenge began. Thorn charged first. He was fast for his size, closing the distance in seconds, claws extended, aiming for Riker, for the wounded king, for the easy kill. He never reached him. Ava intercepted mid-leap, her wolf erupting forward in an explosion of silver fur and fury. They collided in midair, the impact shaking the ground. Thorn was bigger, but Ava was faster, twisting around his guard, teeth finding the weak spot behind his shoulder. Blood sprayed. Thorn roared and threw her off. Ava landed in a crouch, already moving. Behind her she felt Riker engage Vera, heard the clash of alpha wills colliding. The bond sang between them. Whispered warnings, shared instincts, perfect awareness of where the other was at every moment. This was what they'd trained for. This was what the bond made possible. They moved like one creature with 4 limbs. When Vera tried to flank Riker, Ava was already there, driving her back. When Thorn lunged for Ava's throat, Riker intercepted, his claws raking across the older alpha's ribs. Blood painted the white stones red. But Thorn and Vera weren't weak. They'd survived decades of pack politics and territory wars. They adapted, started anticipating the coordinated attacks, started breaking apart Ava and Riker's unified defense. Vera got under Riker's guard. Her claws opened his side right over the barely healed spear wound. He went down hard, gasping. Ava felt it through the bond, felt his pain like it was her own, felt him struggling to stand, to keep fighting. Stay down, she snarled. I've got this. Like hell. Stay down! The command in her voice made his wolf submit, made him stop trying to stand, made him trust her to finish this. Ava turned to face both opponents alone. Thorn and Vera circled her, sensing weakness, sensing the kill. The crowd was screaming now, a wall of sound that made thinking almost impossible. 2 against 1, Vera said. Give up, little Luna. Die with some dignity. Ava's smile was all teeth. Dignity is overrated. She attacked. What happened next would be argued about for years. Some said Ava moved faster than any wolf should be able to move. Others claimed the blood moon gave her power. A few insisted they saw silver light pour from her skin like she was channeling something ancient. The truth was simpler. Ava Sterling fought like someone with nothing left to lose. She went for Vera first. The Coastal Alpha was faster, more dangerous close range. Ava baited her in with a feinted weakness, then struck when Vera committed. Her claws found the throat. Not a killing blow, but close. Close enough that Vera stumbled back, choking, her eyes wide with shock. Thorn roared and charged. Ava shifted mid-turn, her wolf flowing into the attack. She met him head-on, all teeth and rage and brutal efficiency. Went for the legs, hamstrung him, felt bones crack under her jaws. Thorn went down. Ava stood over him, blood dripping from her muzzle. Submit. Never. Submit or die. Her jaws closed around his throat. Not biting down, not yet. Just holding, waiting. The clearing had gone dead silent. Thorn's eyes rolled toward Vera. The coastal alpha was still gasping, still bleeding, still alive but broken. We submit, Thorn finally choked out. The words cost him everything. Ava released him, stepped back, shifted back to human form, naked and covered in blood but standing straight. The crowd erupted. Riker was on his feet, moving to her side despite his wound. His hand found hers and their fingers intertwined, blood mixing between them. "Anyone else?" Ava called out. Her voice carried across the clearing. "Anyone else want to challenge our right to rule?" Silence. Then one by one, the alphas began to drop to their knees. Not just Thorn and Vera. All of them. Eastern Reach, Coastal Pack, Mountain Territory, River Clan. Every pack leader bending the knee, acknowledging their king and queen. Marcus was the last to kneel. Her cousin's eyes met hers across the clearing, and she saw something complicated there. Pride. Fear. Calculation. "Long live the Alpha King," Marcus called out, "and long live the Luna Queen." The crowd took up the chant. Long live the king, long live the queen. Ava stood in the center of it all, Riker's hand in hers, the blood moon overhead, and felt something shift inside her. Not the mate bond, something deeper. This was her kingdom now, not just his, hers. And she would defend it until her last breath. But as the crowd celebrated and the alphas swore their loyalty, Ava saw movement at the edge of the clearing, a figure in the shadows, watching. When she blinked, it was gone. Later that night, back in the palace, Ava stood in their shared chambers staring at the mirror. The healers had cleaned her wounds, stitched what needed stitching, but she could still see the cost of the fight in her reflection. New scars, new damage, new proof that survival came with a price. "You were incredible today," Riker said from behind her. "We were incredible." She didn't turn around. Couldn't. I couldn't have done it without the bond. Without you. "Yes, you could have." His hand settled on her shoulders, warm and steady. "You're stronger than you know." "Am I?" "Because I feel like I'm barely holding it together. Like one more crisis and I'll shatter completely. Then it's good we're in this together." Ava finally turned to face him. "Are we, though? Really? Because I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For another secret, another betrayal, another test I have to pass alone." Riker's expression went serious. "No more secrets. I swore that to you. I meant it. But..." There was something in his eyes, something that made her stomach drop. "But there's information you need, about what Mora found when she was treating my wound." He took a breath. The poison that was on the spear. It wasn't just designed to kill me. What was it designed to do? Change me. Riker's voice was flat. "There were compounds in it I've never seen before. Magic that shouldn't exist. Mora thinks whoever created it was trying to corrupt the mate bond. Turn it into something else. Something controllable." The words hit Ava like a punch. "You're saying someone tried to weaponize our bond?" "I'm saying someone is trying to do something worse than kill us. They're trying to turn us against each other, make us destroy ourselves from the inside out." "Who? I don't know, but whoever they are, they're still out there, still planning. The Northern Alliance was just the first wave." Riker's hands tightened on her shoulders. "The real enemy is still coming." Ava felt cold spread through her chest. "How long do we have?" "Mora thinks weeks. Maybe less. The residue from the poison is still in my system, still changing things. She doesn't know if it can be stopped." The room seemed to tilt. Everything they'd fought for, everything they'd survived, and it still wasn't over. Would never be over. "Then we find a way to stop it," Ava said. Her voice was steel. "We find whoever did this and we end them. And if we can't, then we go down fighting, together, the way it's supposed to be." Riker pulled her close. Their bodies fit together like puzzle pieces, the mate bond humming between them, bright and fierce and fragile. Outside the window, something moved in the darkness. A figure watching the palace. Waiting. In the dungeons far below, in a cell that should have been sealed, shadows began to gather, coalescing into something with form and hunger and terrible purpose. A voice echoed through the stone corridors. "Phase 2 is complete. The poison has taken root. The bond will corrupt. And when they finally turn on each other, when they destroy themselves from within, the kingdom will fall, and we will rise from the ashes. The poison started changing Riker on the third day after the gathering. Ava woke to find him standing at the window, staring out at the pre-dawn darkness with eyes that didn't quite focus. His shoulders were rigid, muscles coiled like he was preparing to fight something only he could see. "Riker," she said quietly. He didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge she'd spoken. Ava moved closer, careful, the way you approached a wild animal. The mate bond between them felt different, warped, like someone had taken a clean wire and twisted it until the signal came through garbled and wrong. She touched his shoulder. Riker spun so fast she barely had time to register the movement. His hand closed around her throat, lifting her off her feet, slamming her against the stone wall hard enough to crack the mortar. His eyes were gold. Pure wolf. No recognition in them at all. Ava clawed at his hand, gasping, feeling her vision start to tunnel. The bond was screaming at her, confused, trying to understand why her mate was killing her. Then Riker blinked. His eyes cleared. Horror flooded his face. He dropped her. Ava collapsed, coughing, one hand pressed to her bruised throat. Riker stumbled backward like she'd burned him, staring at his own hands like they belonged to someone else. I couldn't. Ava, I'm sorry, I don't know what. Get Mora, Ava rasped. Now. The healer arrived within minutes, her face grim. She'd been expecting this, had probably been waiting for it since the moment she identified the poison. Mora examined Riker while Ava watched from across the room, maintaining distance. The old woman's hands moved over his body, checking pulse points, examining his eyes, testing his reflexes. When she was done, her expression was carved from stone. "It's accelerating," Mora said. "The corruption in the bond. I thought we had weeks. We have days at most." "How many days?" Ava asked. Her voice was steady despite the fear coiling in her gut. 3, maybe 4. Mora looked between them. "After that, the bond will turn completely. Instead of connecting you, it will drive you to destroy each other. You'll perceive your mate as your greatest enemy. Your wolf will demand their death." "There has to be a way to stop it," Riker said. His voice was hollow. "Something we can do." "There is." Mora's eyes were ancient and sad. "Break the bond, completely, before the corruption spreads too far." The words landed like a bomb. "Break it?" Ava felt something cold settle in her chest. That's not possible. Mate bonds don't break. They're sacred, eternal. They break when one mate dies. Mora said it matter-of-factly. Or when both parties undergo the severance ritual. It's ancient, dangerous, requires magic that most modern wolves have forgotten, but it can be done. And if we don't? Riker's jaw was tight. You kill each other, probably in front of the entire kingdom. Mora gathered her supplies. The choice is yours. Stay bonded and die, or sever and survive separately. She left. Ava and Riker stood in silence, the twisted bond humming between them like a live wire about to snap. "We should do it," Riker finally said. "The severance. It's the only way to keep you safe." "Safe?" Ava's laugh was bitter. "You think breaking our bond will make anything safe? The kingdom just watched us prove we were unbreakable together. If we sever now, we look weak, compromised. Every alpha who bent the knee will rise up again. Better that than you dead because of me. And if you die because of me? If this poison makes me attack you first?" Ava moved closer despite every instinct screaming at her to run. "We don't even know if severance will work. For all we know, breaking the bond could kill us faster than the corruption." "Then what do you suggest? We find who did this. We make them undo it." Riker's expression was grim. "And if we can't find them in 3 days, then we improvise." Ava's hand found his, their fingers intertwining despite the wrongness singing through the bond. "But I'm not giving up on this. On us. Not until there's no other choice." The first lead came from an unexpected source. A servant girl named Alara, barely 16, approached Ava in the palace gardens that afternoon. The girl was shaking, her eyes darting around like she expected someone to drag her away at any moment. "Luna," she whispered, "I have information about the poison." Ava's full attention snapped to the girl. "Speak," The woman. The one who was with the Alpha King. Celine. Alar's voice dropped even lower. She wasn't working alone. There was someone else, someone in the palace who gave her access, who helped her get close to His Majesty, who, I don't know their name, but I saw them meeting in the old chapel 3 weeks before the coup. Alara pulled a crumpled piece of parchment from her dress. I found this afterward. I think it's part of their plan. Ava unfolded the parchment. The writing was coded, symbols she didn't recognize, but one phrase at the bottom was clear enough. Phase 3. When the bond corrupts, the wolf will turn. When the wolf turns, the kingdom falls. Where did you get this? Ava demanded. Under Celine's mattress, after she died. I was cleaning her room and it fell out. Alara's eyes were wide. Please, Luna. I didn't know what to do with it, who to trust. You did the right thing. Ava gripped the girl's shoulder. Does anyone else know about this? No one. I swear. Keep it that way. Go back to your duties. Speak to no one. Alara fled. Ava stared at the parchment, her mind racing. Phase 3, which meant there had been a Phase 1 and 2. The coup was probably Phase 2, which meant Phase 1 was the infiltration. Getting Celine into the palace, getting her close to Riker, which meant someone had been planning this for months, maybe years. Someone who knew the palace intimately, who had access to the Alpha King's chambers, who could move freely without suspicion. Someone they trusted. Ava found Riker in the war room, poring over reports with what was left of the council. He looked worse than this morning. His skin had taken on a grayish tinge, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. The poison was eating him alive from the inside out. We need to talk, Ava said. Alone. The council filed out. Ava waited until the door closed before showing him the parchment. Riker read it twice. His hands were shaking. Phase 3. They planned this from the beginning, every step, which means they knew about the poison's effects before they used it. Ava moved to the maps spread across the table. Knew it would corrupt the bond. Knew it would make us destroy each other. This wasn't just about killing you. It was about breaking us. Breaking the kingdom. Who has that kind of knowledge? Ancient magic? Wolf bonds? Palace security? Riker's voice was rough. Who could plan something this complex? Someone who's been here a long time. Someone we never suspected. Ava traced the palace layout with one finger. We need to go through everyone. Every servant, every guard, every... The door burst open. Marcus strode in with a dozen Highland warriors at his back. His face was carved from granite, his eyes hard. Step away from him, cousin, Marcus said quietly. Ava's wolf surged forward. Excuse me? I said step away from the Alpha King. Marcus's hand rested on his sword hilt. I know about the poison, about what it's doing to your bond, and I'm not going to stand by and watch you two tear each other apart. How do you know about that? Riker growled. That information was sealed. Because I've been investigating the Northern Alliance since before the coup. Marcus moved closer, his warriors forming a semicircle around the door. I've been tracking their movements, their plans, their operatives, and I know that bond corruption is irreversible once it reaches a certain point. He looked at Ava. You're out of time. We have 3 days, Ava said. You have hours. Look at him. Marcus gestured at Riker. Really look, he's already halfway gone. Another few hours and his wolf will take over completely. And when it does, you'll be the first person he kills. Ava's eyes found Riker, saw the truth in his clenched jaw, his rigid posture, the way he was holding himself away from her like she was dangerous. He was fighting himself, fighting his own wolf, and losing. Marcus, I appreciate your concern, but this isn't concern. This is me protecting my alpha. Marcus's voice hardened. I'm invoking Highland Pact law. You're coming with me. Now. Until this corruption is resolved or severed, you're under my protection. You can't just take her, Riker snarled. She's the Luna Queen. She's dying if she stays with you. Marcus met Riker's eyes. You know I'm right. You can feel it through the bond. Feel how wrong it's becoming. How much longer before you can't control it? The silence was answer enough. No, Ava said. I'm not leaving him. We solve this together or not at all. Then you'll die together. Marcus's expression was bleak. Is that what you want? To be remembered as the Luna who was so loyal to her mate that she let him rip her throat out? Because that's where this ends, Ava. That's the only ending this story has. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Marcus pulled a scroll from his belt, tossed it on the table. That's a report from the Northern Territory. 3 years ago, they had a similar case. Alpha bonded to his mate. Someone poisoned him with the same compound. He killed her in front of their entire pack, tore her apart with his bare hands while screaming that he loved her. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ava looked at Riker, saw the horror in his eyes, saw him realize that Marcus might be right. 3 days, she repeated. Her voice was steel. Give us 3 days to find who did this. If we can't stop it by then, I'll go with you willingly. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. 3 days. But I'm stationing warriors outside your chambers. If things go wrong before then, they'll intervene. Fine. And Ava? Marcus's expression softened just slightly. I hope you prove me wrong. He left, his warriors filing out behind him. Ava and Riker stood alone in the wreckage of their certainty. We have to move fast, Ava said. Find the person who orchestrated this before the corruption takes over completely. And if we can't, then Marcus gets his wish. We break the bond and survive separately. Riker's hand found hers despite everything. I don't want to survive without you. Then we better find answers. They spent the next 8 hours tearing through every record, every report, every piece of intelligence the palace had collected over the past 5 years, looking for patterns, connections, anything that might point to who had the knowledge and access to plan something this elaborate. It was Riker who found it. Look at this, he said, his voice strange. The supply requisitions from 2 years ago. Someone ordered large quantities of nightshade and silver dust, the same components used in the poison. Who ordered them? It doesn't say. The signature is illegible, but the authorization code. Riker's face went pale. That's a council-level code. Only 7 people in the kingdom have access to that level of requisition. Give me the names. Riker rattled them off. 4 were dead, killed in the coup. 2 were at the gathering, witnessed by hundreds. That left one. Mora. The name fell between them like a stone. No, Ava said. That's impossible. She's been trying to help us. She identified the poison, told us about the corruption, told us exactly what she wanted us to know. Riker stood, his movements sharp. Think about it. She's ancient, has knowledge of old magic that most wolves have forgotten. She had access to my chambers for months while treating various injuries. She would have known about Celine, about the plan, about everything. But why? What does she gain from destroying us? I don't know. But we're about to find out. They found Mora in her chambers deep in the palace. The old woman was bent over a table covered in vials and herbs, grinding something in a mortar with practiced efficiency. She didn't look up when they entered. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out, Mora said calmly. Longer than I expected, to be honest. I thought you'd realize after you found the coded message. Ava felt fury surge through her. You did this. You poisoned Riker, corrupted our bond. I created the poison, yes. Mora finally looked up. Her ancient eyes were cold, but I didn't administer it. That was Garrett's doing, his people. I simply provided the means. Why? Because your bond was never supposed to exist. Mora set down her mortar, her movements deliberate. The Blackthorn line and the Sterling line should never have been connected. Your bloodlines are too powerful, too dangerous when combined. The Moon Goddess herself warned against it centuries ago. The Moon Goddess? Riker's voice was dangerous. You're using divine mandate to justify murder? Not murder? Balance. Mora moved around the table toward them. Your bond threatens the natural order, creates power no single pair should wield. I've spent 70 years studying wolf bonds, their limits, their dangers, and I've never seen anything like what you two created at the gathering. That kind of power unchecked could destroy kingdoms, could remake the world. So you decided to destroy us first. Ava's claws extended. Before we could become what you feared, I decided to give you a choice. Break the bond willingly and live separately, or die together as fate intended. Mora's smile was thin. But I see you've chosen the hard way. How predictably noble. There's a cure, Riker said. You created the poison. You know how to reverse it. Oh, there's a cure, but it requires something you're not willing to give. Name it. One of you has to die. Mora said it flatly. The corruption is tied to both your life forces. Severing the bond won't work at this stage. The poison is too advanced. But if one of you dies, it breaks the connection completely, saves the other. Ava felt cold flood her veins. You're lying. I'm the only person in this kingdom who understands bond magic at this level. I'm the only one who can save either of you. Mora moved to a shelf, pulled down a vial of dark liquid. This is the antidote, but it only works on one person, one survivor. Choose. No, Ava said. Then you both die. Mora shrugged. The corruption will complete in approximately 6 hours. After that, your wolves will take over. You'll kill each other in the most brutal way imaginable. And I'll tell the kingdom it was a tragic result of the Northern Alliance's final revenge. She's bluffing, Riker said. There has to be another way. There isn't. And deep down you both know it. Mora's eyes glittered. So choose. Which of you loves the other enough to die? Which of you is willing to sacrifice everything so your mate can live? The question hung in the air like poison. Ava looked at Riker, saw him looking back at her, saw the same desperate calculation in his eyes that was probably in hers. The bond between them pulsed, warped, corrupted, screaming at them to choose survival over each other. I'll do it, Riker said. His voice was steady. Give Ava the antidote. Let me die. No. Ava stepped forward. I'm the one who should... Stop, both of you. Mora laughed, the sound bitter. How touching, but ultimately futile. The antidote doesn't work that way. The person who dies doesn't get to choose. The survivor does. She held up the vial. So, Luna Queen, do you love your mate enough to kill him? To end his life with your own hands and live with that weight forever? Ava's breath caught. What? The antidote requires the survivor to administer the killing blow, to consciously, deliberately end their mate's life. It's the only way to break the corruption cleanly. Mora's smile was cruel. So choose, child. Save yourself by destroying him, or die together in a few hours when the wolves take over. You're insane, Riker snarled. I'm practical. Mora set the vial on the table between them. You have 6 hours. Decide. She walked out, leaving them alone with an impossible choice. Ava stared at the vial, at Riker, at the bond between them that was unraveling by the second. We're not doing this, she said. Her voice shook. There has to be another way. There isn't. Riker moved to the table, picked up the vial. And I won't let you die because of my mistakes. Because I was arrogant enough to think I could handle the Northern Alliance alone. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. All of it. I got manipulated, got played, got you dragged into a war you never asked for. Riker's eyes were blazing. If one of us has to die, it should be me. I'm the one who failed. You didn't fail, you survived. Ava grabbed his arm. We survived, together, and we're going to keep surviving. I don't care what Mora says. I don't care about impossible choices. We find another way. There is no other way. The roar came from somewhere deep in Riker's chest. His eyes flashed gold. His body shuddered like he was fighting himself from the inside out. The corruption was accelerating. Riker, Ava whispered, stay with me. I'm trying. His voice was strained. But it's getting harder. My wolf wants, it needs. What? What does it need? You. Dead, bleeding, gone. Riker stumbled backward, slamming into the wall. You need to leave. Now, before I can't control it anymore. I'm not leaving you. Ava, please. No. She moved toward him despite every instinct screaming danger. If your wolf wants me dead, then it'll have to go through me first. And I promise you that won't be easy. This isn't a joke. I know. Ava's hand found his face, forced him to meet her eyes. I know exactly how serious this is. But I also know that we're stronger together than apart. That's what the bond means. That's what makes us dangerous. So if Mora thinks splitting us up will make us weaker, she's dead wrong. Something in Riker's expression shifted. Ava, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Mora made a mistake, a big one. Ava's mind was racing, pieces falling into place. She gave us an impossible choice, one that forces us to turn on each other, to break ourselves from the inside. But what if we don't play her game? What if we refuse to choose? The corruption will kill us. Maybe. Or maybe that's what she wants us to believe. Think about it. She created this poison specifically to corrupt mate bonds, to turn partners against each other. But we've been fighting that corruption for days, fighting the bond itself. What if that's the problem? What if fighting it makes it stronger? Riker's eyes widened. You're saying we should stop fighting, stop resisting. I'm saying we should trust the bond. Let it do what it was designed to do, connect us. Ava gripped his hands. Mora said our bloodlines together are too powerful, that our bond threatens the natural order. What if she's right? What if we're so busy being afraid of what we could become that we're not letting ourselves become it? That's insane. So is everything else we've done. Ava pulled him closer. Trust me. Trust us. Let the bond complete. Fully. No barriers, no resistance. All in. If you're wrong, we die. If I'm wrong, we were going to die anyway. Her smile was fierce. At least this way we go out fighting. Riker stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, he nodded. All in. They moved to the center of the room, stood facing each other. Ava could feel the corrupted bond between them, twisted and wrong and screaming to be severed. She took a breath, opened herself to it completely. The pain was instantaneous, overwhelming, like being torn apart from the inside while simultaneously being burned alive. The corruption surged through the bond, trying to turn her against Riker, trying to make her see him as the enemy. But underneath the corruption, underneath the poison and the twisted magic, she felt something else. The original bond, clean, pure, unbreakable. She dove toward it. Riker gasped. She felt him through the connection, felt him fighting the same battle, felt his wolf raging against hers, demanding blood, demanding death, and felt him push past it, reach for her, meet her in that deep place where the bond lived. Their wolves collided, not in violence, in recognition. This was what the moon goddess had intended, not careful politics and strategic alliances, not mates who moved in parallel but never truly merged. This was complete integration, total unity, two wolves becoming one. The corruption screamed, tried to hold, tried to keep them separated, but the original bond was stronger, had always been stronger. It just needed them to stop fighting it long enough to remember. Ava felt the poison burning away, felt the twisted magic dissolving under the weight of something older, something that had been waiting since before either of them were born. She felt Riker's pain become hers, his strength, his fury, his love, felt him feeling her the same way. The bond snapped into place. Fully, perfectly. They opened their eyes simultaneously. The room was glowing, silver light pouring from their skin, from their joined hands, from the bond itself now visible as a shining thread connecting their hearts. Mora stood in the doorway. Her face was slack with shock. Impossible, the old woman whispered. You shouldn't have survived that. The corruption should have killed you both. Ava's voice came out doubled, harmonized with Riker's. You miscalculated. Thought breaking us was about separating us. But we were never meant to be separate. The light intensified. Mora threw up her hands to shield her eyes. When the glow faded, Ava and Riker stood transformed. Not physically, but something had fundamentally changed. They moved in perfect synchronization, breathed at the same time. Their eyes glowed with identical silver fire. What have you done? Mora breathed. What we should have done from the beginning. Ava took a step forward, stopped fighting what we are, what we were always meant to become. This isn't natural. Mora was backing toward the door. This kind of bond shouldn't exist, can't exist. It breaks every law of wolf magic. Then maybe those laws need to be rewritten. Riker's voice was calm. Tell us who else was involved. Who else helped you plan this? I work alone. Liar. The word carried power. Command. Mora stumbled like she'd been physically hit. Names, Ava demanded. Now. The old woman's mouth worked. She was fighting the compulsion but losing. The bond gave them authority now, real authority that transcended pack law and political maneuvering. There were others, Mora finally gasped. The Eastern Territory Alpha, Thorn. He survived the challenge, but he was part of it from the beginning. And there's someone else, someone in the council. I don't know their name. They communicate through coded messages. Where are these messages? Hidden, in the old archives. behind the map of the original territory boundaries. Ava and Riker exchanged a look. No words needed. They knew exactly what the other was thinking. "Marcus," Riker said. "Get Marcus." "I'll get him." "But what do we do with her?" Ava looked at Mora, at the woman who'd tried to destroy them, who'd orchestrated months of suffering and betrayal. She should die. Should be executed publicly for treason. But looking at the old woman's terrified face, Ava felt something shift inside her. Felt the bond tempering her rage with something that might have been wisdom. "You're going to tell the council everything," Ava said quietly. "Every detail of your plan, every person involved, every spell you used, and then you're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell wondering if you made the right choice." "Death would be mercy," Mora whispered. "Exactly." They found Marcus in the training yard, drilling his warriors. When he saw them approaching, his eyes widened. "What happened to you two?" "We completed the bond." "Fully this time." Riker's voice was steady. "And we need you to help us end this, for real." Marcus studied them for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Told you I hoped you'd prove me wrong. What do you need?" "Access to the old archives. Mora confessed there's another traitor in the council. We need to find them before they realize we survived." The three of them moved through the palace like a storm. Marcus's warriors secured the entrances while Ava and Riker descended into the archives, a maze of tunnels beneath the palace that held centuries of kingdom records. They found the map Mora mentioned. Behind it was a hollow space containing dozens of coded messages. Riker decoded them while Ava stood guard. His hands moved quickly, years of training in military ciphers paying off. When he was done, his face was carved from stone. "Who is it?" Ava asked. Riker held up the final message. The signature was clear. Aldrich, the oldest councilman, the one who'd smiled at Ava after the coup, who'd seemed so supportive. He'd been working against them the entire time. That white-haired piece of... Ava's curse was cut off by footsteps echoing down the corridor. Aldrich himself appeared, flanked by a dozen guards, all wearing the crest of the Eastern Territory, Thorne's men. "Well," the old wolf said pleasantly, "I see you survived Mora's little test. Impressive. Inconvenient, but impressive." "You've been planning this from the beginning," Riker said. "The infiltration, the coup, the poison, all of it, not from the beginning." Aldrich moved closer, unconcerned with the threat they posed. "From the moment your father died and you took the throne, you were always too young, too idealistic, too weak to do what needed to be done." "Which was what?" "Unite the kingdom under proper leadership. The old packs, the ones who remember how things used to be before the Blackthorn line got soft." Aldrich's smile was cold. "Your father understood balance, understood that wolves are predators first. But you? You tried to make peace, build alliances, treat other packs as equals instead of subjects. So you tried to destroy us to take power for yourself, not for myself. For the kingdom." Aldrich gestured and his guards moved to surround them. "But since you've proven remarkably difficult to kill, I suppose I'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. Single combat, right here, right now." "You'll lose," Ava said. "Perhaps. But even if I do, I've already won." Aldrich pulled a whistle from his robes, blew a sharp note. The palace shuddered. Somewhere above them, wolves began howling. The sound of fighting echoed down through the stone. "That's the Eastern Territory Army," Aldrich said calmly. 300 warriors. They've been camped just outside the kingdom borders for 2 weeks waiting for my signal. By now they've breached the palace walls. Your guards are outnumbered, outmatched, and you're trapped down here with me." Ava felt rage surge through her, felt Riker's fury match hers through the bond. They moved as one. What happened next was brutal efficiency. The bond allowed them to fight as a single organism, anticipating each other's movements, covering weaknesses, amplifying strengths. They cut through Aldrich's guards like they were made of paper. Aldrich himself was tougher, ancient, experienced. He met them with centuries of combat training, his wolf surging forward with power that rivaled their own. But he was alone, and they were two made one. The fight lasted less than a minute. When it ended, Aldrich was on his knees, bleeding from a dozen wounds, his guards dead or unconscious around him. "Submit," Riker commanded. "Never," Aldrich spat blood. I'd rather die than bow to a weak king and his mongrel Luna. Careful, Ava said softly. That mongrel just ended you. She didn't kill him, didn't give him the clean death he wanted. Instead, she knocked him unconscious with a precise strike, and they bound him with silver chains. Marcus appeared at the entrance to the archives, covered in blood. The Eastern Territory forces have breached the inner courtyard. We're holding, but we need help. How many warriors do we have? Riker asked. 200, maybe less. Marcus's expression was grim. They brought 3 times that number, and they're well-trained, well-equipped. Someone's been funding them for years. Aldrich, Ava said. Through embezzled council funds, probably. We need to evacuate the civilians, Riker said. Get them to the underground shelters. Then, no. Ava cut him off. No evacuating, no retreating. She felt something crystallize inside her, felt the bond amplifying her certainty. We end this. Tonight. All of it. Ava, we're outnumbered. We have something they don't. She met Riker's eyes. We have the bond. Full power. Unrestricted. She turned to Marcus. Can your warriors hold the inner courtyard for 10 minutes? 10 minutes? Against those numbers? Marcus looked skeptical. Maybe. Why? Because that's how long we need. Ava gripped Riker's hand. Trust me. They ran, up through the archives, through the palace corridors where servants cowered and guards fought desperately to hold ground, out onto the main balcony overlooking the courtyard where the Eastern Territory forces had gathered like a dark tide. 300 warriors, all staring up at them, all ready to tear them apart. Ava and Riker stood at the railing, hands joined, the bond blazing between them like a star. Warriors of the Eastern Territory, Riker's voice boomed across the courtyard. You've been lied to, told that your alpha died honorably in a challenge. But the truth is Aldrich orchestrated his defeat, used him, manipulated him into attacking us so he could consolidate power. And now he sent you here to die for his ambition. The warriors shifted uneasily. Proof, someone shouted. Show us proof. Ava held up the coded messages. Your orders came from Aldrich, not Thorn. Aldrich has been controlling the Eastern Territory for months through forgery and lies. Your real alpha submitted honorably. These attacks, this invasion, it's treason, and you're all complicit. We follow our alpha's orders, the same warrior shouted. If Thorn commanded this, we obey. Then you'll die for nothing, Ava said flatly, because Aldrich is in chains, and you're surrounded by every loyal pack in the kingdom, so you have a choice. Stand down now, or die as traitors. The warriors looked at each other, uncertain, confused. Then one dropped to his knees, then another, then a dozen, then all of them, a wave of submission rippling through the courtyard. The battle was over before it truly began. Marcus emerged from the palace, covered in blood but grinning. Well played, cousin. Very well played. It's not over yet. Ava looked at Riker. We still need to find everyone Aldrich was working with, root out every conspirator, make sure this never happens again. Agreed. But first, Riker pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Thank you for trusting the bond, for believing we could survive this. We haven't survived yet, Ava murmured, but we're getting closer. They stood together as dawn broke over the kingdom, as healers moved through the wounded, as loyal warriors began securing prisoners, as the palace slowly returned to something resembling order. But in the dungeons below, in a cell that no one was watching, shadows moved, and a voice whispered, Phase 4 begins now. The shadows in the dungeon cell coalesced into form 3 hours after dawn. No one saw it happen. The guards posted outside Aldrich's cell were loyal, well-trained warriors who'd survived the coup and the Eastern Territory invasion. They'd been instructed to watch for escape attempts, assassins, anyone trying to free or kill the traitor. They weren't watching for something that had been there all along. The first guard died without making a sound. One moment he was standing at attention. The next he was on the ground, throat opened, eyes wide with shock. The second guard turned, hand moving toward his weapon, but the shadows were already on him. When the killing was done, the cell door swung open. Aldrich looked up from where he sat in silver chains. His eyes widened in recognition, then in terror. You, he whispered. The figure stepped into the torchlight. Female. Beautiful, with auburn hair and green eyes that Ava had seen before. Celine. Impossible. Celine was dead. Ava had watched her die during the coup, watched Marcus tear her throat out in the war room. But here she stood, whole and unharmed, smiling with teeth that were too sharp. "Did you really think I'd be so easy to kill?" she purred. "Did you think the Northern Alliance would put all their faith in one body, one plan? You're not real," Aldrich breathed. "You're a ghost." A twin," Celine finished. "My sister died for the cause, played her part perfectly, got close to the Alpha King, corrupted the bond, set everything in motion. And while everyone was focused on her, I've been here, waiting, watching, learning every weakness in this palace." "You were supposed to contact me," Aldrich said. His voice shook. "Supposed to help me take the throne after the bond broke them. Plans change, old wolf." Celine crouched in front of him, her smile widening. "You failed. Mora failed. Even my sister failed. The Alpha King and his mongrel Luna survived everything we threw at them, grew stronger from it." She stood. "So now we move to phase 4, which is total annihilation. No more subtle manipulation, no more political games. We burn the kingdom to ash and rebuild from the ruins." Celine pulled a key from her belt, unlocked Aldrich's chains. "You're going to help me do it." "Why would I?" "Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows you begged for mercy before you died, that you cried like a pup, that the great councilman Aldrich spent his final moments pissing himself in fear." Celine's eyes glowed amber. "Or you can die fighting, die with some dignity. Your choice." Aldrich stood slowly. His wrists were raw from the silver chains, his body battered from the fight with Ava and Riker. But his eyes held something calculating, something that suggested he wasn't as beaten as he appeared. "What do you need me to do?" he asked quietly. Celine's smile was triumphant. "Exactly what you do best. Betray everyone." Ava woke to Riker's hand on her shoulder, shaking her gently. The bond between them was screaming alarm before she even opened her eyes. "Something's wrong," he said. His voice was tight. She was on her feet instantly, reaching for weapons. "What happened?" "The dungeon guards, both dead. Aldrich's cell is empty." "How long?" "Maybe an hour. Maybe less. Marcus found them during his patrol. He's securing the area now, but Aldrich's loose, and we have no idea where he went." Ava finished. "Or who helped him escape." They moved through the palace at a run, the bond keeping them synchronized, their senses extended and searching for threats. The hallways were too quiet. Dawn should have brought servants, guards changing shifts, the normal bustle of palace life. Instead, there was silence, heavy and oppressive. "Something's very wrong," Ava said. "Where is everyone?" They found the answer in the throne room. Every servant, every guard, every council member who'd survived the purge was there, standing in neat rows facing the throne. Their eyes were glazed, unfocused, moving in perfect unison like puppets on strings. And sitting on the throne was Celine. "Hello, lovers," she purred. "Miss me?" Ava's wolf surged forward. "You're dead. I watched you die. You watched my sister die." Celine stood, her movements liquid. "Did you really think we'd only send one operative? That the Northern Alliance would stake everything on a single plan?" She laughed. "We've been planning this for 5 years, every contingency, every outcome, every path to victory." "Then you failed," Riker said. His voice was cold. "We're still standing. The bond is complete. Your allies are dead or captured." "Are they?" Celine gestured to the rows of blank-eyed wolves. "I have your entire palace, every person who matters. One word from me and they'll tear each other apart." She tilted her head. "Or they'll tear you apart, whatever I command." "Blood magic," Ava breathed. "You're controlling them with blood magic." "Very good, Luna." Celine descended from the throne. Ancient magic, the kind that requires sacrifice, pain, suffering. She spread her hands. "I've been collecting blood from your servants for months. A drop here, a splash there. Enough to create a network of control that spans the entire palace. And now that network is mine." Riker's hand found Ava's. Through the bond, she felt his calculation, felt him running scenarios, looking for weaknesses, planning attacks. "Blood magic has limits," he said. "It requires constant concentration. The moment you break focus, they break free. True, but I don't have to hold them long, just long enough. Celine's eyes glowed brighter. Phase 4 isn't about controlling the kingdom. It's about destroying it so completely that what rises from the ashes has no choice but to submit to the Northern Alliance. You're insane. I'm practical. Celine moved closer, her controlled servants shifting with her. Your bond makes you powerful, dangerous, but it also makes you predictable. You'll sacrifice anything to protect each other, to protect these people. She gestured to the blank-eyed wolves. So here's my offer. One of you dies. Right here, right now. The other gets to live, gets to keep the kingdom, and I release everyone unharmed. Ava's blood ran cold. You're lying. Am I? Celine smiled. Test me. Refuse my offer. See what happens to all these innocent wolves when I give the command to kill. The controlled servants shifted. Their hands moved to weapons, to each other's throats. Stop, Riker commanded. Alpha order. The power in his voice should have broken through any compulsion. The servants didn't even blink. Blood magic trumps pack bonds, Celine said. The only way to break it is to kill the caster, or give me what I want. Through the bond, Ava felt Riker preparing to do something stupid. Felt him gathering himself to attack Celine directly, to sacrifice himself to break the spell. She gripped his hand harder. Don't. Ava, I said don't. She met his eyes. We're not playing her game, not giving her the satisfaction of tearing us apart. Then what do you suggest? Because in about 30 seconds she's going to start killing people. Ava turned back to Celine. You want one of us dead, but you didn't specify how. Celine's smile faltered slightly. What are you implying? I'm implying that blood magic works both ways. Ava felt the bond surge between her and Riker, felt power building. You're using blood to control them, but our bond is blood, deeper than any spell, older than your magic. You can't break my hold with the mate bond, Celine said, but she sounded less certain now. Maybe not. But we can amplify it. Ava looked at Riker. Remember what happened when we stopped fighting the corruption? When we let the bond complete fully. You want to do that again, Riker said slowly, but deliberately this time. Not just complete it, extend it to everyone in this room, override her control with ours. That's impossible. Celine's voice rose. The mate bond only works between two wolves. Usually, Ava agreed. But we're not usual. Are we? She and Riker moved simultaneously. Their hands joined, the bond blazing to life between them like a star. The power that had saved them from Mora's poison surged forward, but this time they directed it, controlled it, pushed it outward in waves that washed over the controlled servants. Celine screamed, No, you can't! The blood magic shattered. One by one, the blank-eyed wolves blinked, awareness flooding back into their faces, confusion, fear, then understanding. They'd been controlled, used, and now they were free. Celine stumbled backward, her face twisted with rage. This isn't over. The Northern Alliance is done, Marcus said from the doorway. The Highland Alpha strode in with 24 warriors. We've been tracking your communications since the coup. Every message, every coded signal, every safe house. His smile was sharp. Your alliance is in chains, every territory, every operative. It took weeks, but we got them all. Liar, Celine hissed. Am I? Marcus tossed a bundle of papers at her feet. Territory maps. Names, locations. We've been dismantling your network piece by piece while you were focused on the palace. Congratulations. You're the last one standing. The color drained from Celine's face. She looked around wildly, seeing the circle of warriors closing in, seeing her plan crumbling. Then she smiled. One last time. If I can't have the kingdom, she said softly, no one can. She bit down on something, a capsule hidden in her mouth. Her body convulsed. Poison, Riker realized. Stop her. Too late. Celine's eyes rolled back, but before she collapsed, she spoke one final word. Burn. The palace shuddered. Explosions ripped through the lower levels. The sound was deafening, the impact strong enough to crack the throne room floor. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling. She rigged the foundations, Marcus shouted. The whole structure's compromised. Everyone out, Riker commanded. Now! The servants and guards fled. Warriors grabbed those too injured or shocked to move on their own, dragging them toward the exits. The palace was collapsing around them, centuries-old stone cracking like it was made of paper. Ava and Riker ran through corridors that were disintegrating. Behind them, they could hear the roar of destruction, feel the heat as fires spread through the lower levels. The palace had survived wars, coups, assassinations, but Selene had found its weakness, had planted explosives in the deep foundation over months of infiltration. She'd always planned to burn it down. They made it to the main courtyard as the central tower collapsed. The sound was like the world ending. Hundreds of tons of stone crashing down, taking with it the throne room, the council chambers, centuries of history. The palace that had stood for 400 years was gone. Ava stood in the wreckage, breathing hard, covered in dust. Around her, survivors were gathering, wounded but alive. Marcus was shouting orders, organizing rescue efforts, searching for anyone trapped in the rubble. "We lost everything," someone said. A young guard, barely 20, staring at the ruins. The palace, the archives, everything. "No," Riker said. His voice cut through the chaos. "We lost a building. That's all." "With respect, Your Majesty," the guard started. "That building was just stone and wood." Ava moved to stand beside Riker. "The kingdom isn't a place. It's the people. And we're all still here. But the throne can be rebuilt, stronger than before." Riker's eyes swept across the gathered survivors. This wasn't an ending, it was a purge. The Northern Alliance spent 5 years infiltrating our home, corrupting it from within. Now it's gone. And we build something new, something they can never touch. The survivors were listening now, really listening. Ava felt the bond between her and Riker pulse with certainty, felt the rightness of what came next. "We're done hiding behind walls," she said. "Done pretending that stone can protect us. The only thing that protects a kingdom is its people, their loyalty, their strength, their willingness to stand together against anything that threatens them." "What are you proposing?" Marcus asked. His expression was curious. "A new order," Riker's voice carried across the courtyard. "No more councils that meet in secret, no more political games played behind closed doors. We rebuild this kingdom with transparency, with unity. Every pack, every territory, equal voices." "That's chaos," an older wolf protested. "You need hierarchy, structure." "We need trust," Ava countered. "And trust isn't built through hierarchy. It's built through proof, through showing our people that their rulers will fight beside them, bleed beside them, die beside them if necessary." The crowd murmured, some agreeing, some uncertain. Then one wolf stepped forward, a young female, scarred across her face from the recent battles. "I'll follow that kind of leadership, the kind that doesn't hide when things get hard." Another wolf joined her, then another, then dozens, then hundreds. Within minutes, every survivor in the courtyard had sworn loyalty, not to a throne or a crown, to Ava and Riker, to the bond they represented, to the future they promised. Marcus watched it all with something that might have been pride in his eyes. "You're really doing this," he said quietly, "remaking the entire kingdom." "We don't have a choice," Ava replied. "The old ways almost destroyed us. Time to try something new." The next 3 days were chaos of a different kind. Rebuilding, reorganizing, establishing temporary shelters for those displaced by the palace collapse, sending messengers to every territory announcing the changes coming, preparing for the inevitable resistance from the old guard who'd cling to traditional power structures. But through it all, Ava and Riker moved with purpose. United. The bond between them was a constant presence now, no longer something they fought or questioned. It was simply part of who they were. Two wolves functioning as one. On the 4th day, Marcus pulled them aside. "We have a problem," he said. "The Eastern Reach. After Thorne's death, his second-in-command has been consolidating power. He's refusing to accept your authority, calling the new order illegitimate." "Let me guess," Riker said. "He wants to challenge us. Formally. At the new moon." Marcus's expression was grim. "And he's not alone. 3 other territories have joined him. They see the palace destruction as weakness, think now's the time to break away, form their own alliance." "How many warriors?" Ava asked. "Combined?" "Maybe 800. Marcus paused. "We have 600. Maybe less, depending on how many actually show up when the fighting starts." The numbers were bad. Not impossible, but close. We can't win through force alone, Riker said. Not against those odds. Then we don't use force. Ava's mind was racing. We use psychology. Show them that fighting us means destroying themselves. How? We give them exactly what they're asking for. A challenge. But not the kind they expect, she looked at Marcus. Can you get messages to the resistance territories? Invite their leaders to neutral ground? For what purpose? To offer them a choice. Ava's smile was sharp. Join the new order willingly, or face us in combat. But if they choose combat, they fight both of us. Together, full bond, no holding back. You're betting they'll back down when they see what you can do, Marcus said slowly. I'm betting they're smart enough to recognize when they're outmatched. Ava met his eyes. And if they're not, we put them down hard enough that no one else questions our authority again. That's brutal. That's leadership. When you're at the top, you don't have the luxury of being soft. Every decision is brutal. Every choice has a cost. You just hope the cost is worth the outcome. The words came from some deep place inside her, some understanding she'd gained through months of violence and betrayal and survival. Leadership wasn't about being loved or feared, it was about being effective, about making the hard calls that kept your people alive even when those calls destroyed parts of yourself. Riker's hand found hers. Through the bond, she felt his understanding, his agreement. Set up the meeting, he told Marcus. 7 days from now. Neutral ground. We end this resistance before it becomes a civil war. Marcus nodded and left. Ava and Riker stood alone in what had once been the throne room, now just rubble and ash. You ready for this? He asked. No, but that's never stopped us before. They spent the next 7 days preparing, not just physically, though they trained until their bodies screamed, but mentally, emotionally, pushing the bond to its absolute limits, learning exactly how far they could extend their power, how much they could amplify each other. By the 7th day, they moved like a single creature, thought like one mind, fought like one impossibly lethal organism. The meeting ground was an ancient battlefield, a flat plain where packs had settled disputes for centuries. Neutral, sacred, the perfect place for what was coming. The resistance leaders arrived with their armies, 4 alphas, each commanding 200 warriors. They formed a wall across the field, weapons drawn, faces hard. Ava and Riker arrived alone. The message was clear. We don't need an army, we have each other. Alpha Cain of the Eastern Reach stepped forward. He was massive, battle-scarred, with eyes that held no compromise. You destroyed the palace, he said, the symbol of our kingdom's strength, and now you ask us to bow to a new order built on ashes? We didn't destroy it, Riker replied. The Northern Alliance did. We survived it. And now you claim that survival gives you the right to remake our entire society? Cain's voice rose. To throw out centuries of tradition? Those traditions almost got us all killed, Ava said. They created the cracks the Alliance used to infiltrate us, corrupt us, tear us apart from the inside. So yes, we're throwing them out, building something stronger. Or you're building weakness disguised as unity. Cain drew his sword. I challenge your right to rule. Single combat, me against both of you. If I win, the territory split. Form independent alliances. If you win, he smiled, I'll consider bending the knee. The other 3 alphas moved forward. Their challenge stood 2, 4 against 2. The odds were worse than Ava expected, but backing down now meant showing weakness, meant emboldening every other territory that questioned their authority. We accept, Riker said, his voice carried across the field. 4 alphas against the bonded king and queen. Winner takes the kingdom. The warriors formed a circle, wide enough for the coming battle, tight enough that no one could escape. Ava and Riker stood in the center, hands joined, the bond blazing between them. The 4 alphas spread out, flanking them from all sides. This was going to be brutal. A horn sounded. The challenge began. All 4 attacked simultaneously, coordinated, practiced. They'd clearly planned this, worked out strategies for taking down a bonded pair. But they'd never faced a bond like this one. Ava and Riker moved, not away from each other, toward the attacks, meeting them head-on with power that made the air crack. The first alpha, Cain, came in fast, his sword aimed for Riker's throat. Ava intercepted, her claws catching the blade, redirecting it. The impact rang across the field. The second alpha went for Ava's back. Riker was already there, his own blade singing as it blocked the strike. They flowed together, dancing, fighting, every movement perfectly synchronized through the bond. When one was vulnerable, the other covered. When one attacked, the other created the opening. Blood sprayed. Ava's across her ribs where an alpha got through her guard. Riker's across his shoulder where a blade slipped past his defense. But they didn't slow, didn't break rhythm. The bond wasn't just amplifying their strength. It was making them functionally immortal as long as they stood together. Injuries that should have dropped them individually barely registered when shared between two. The four alphas realized it too, realized they couldn't win through attrition. They changed tactics. All four converged on Riker, trying to overwhelm him, kill him, break the bond by eliminating half of it. Ava felt the danger through their connection, felt Riker about to go down under the combined assault. She made a choice, threw herself between him and the attack, took 4 strikes meant for him, felt blades punch through her body, felt bones crack, felt her vision go white with agony. But the bond held, kept her standing, kept her conscious through injuries that should have killed her, and gave Riker the opening he needed. He moved like vengeance incarnate. His blade found throats, hearts, the weak points in armor. 2 alphas went down in seconds, dead before they hit the ground. Kane and the 4th alpha stumbled back, shocked. "You can't win this," Ava said. Her voice was steady despite the blood running down her body. "You're fighting 2 people who would die for each other, who have died for each other, who keep coming back because the bond won't let us quit." "That's not strength," Kane breathed. "That's obsession. Call it what you want." Riker moved to Ava's side, his hand finding hers. "But it's keeping us standing, and it's going to keep us standing long after you fall." The 4th alpha dropped his weapon. "I submit, coward," Kane snarled. "Realist," the alpha corrected. "I can't beat that." "No one can." He walked off the field, leaving Kane alone against them both. The Eastern Reach alpha stood for a long moment, bleeding, exhausted, facing 2 opponents who showed no signs of stopping. Then slowly, deliberately, he dropped to one knee. "I submit," he said. The words cost him everything. "You've proven your strength, earned the right to rule. I bend the knee to the Alpha King and Luna Queen of Moonfang." The watching warriors erupted, some cheering, some shocked, all understanding that something fundamental had just changed. The resistance was over. Ava swayed. The adrenaline was fading, the injuries catching up with her. She felt Riker's arm around her waist, holding her up. Through the bond, she felt his exhaustion matching hers, felt the cost of what they'd just done, the price they'd paid. But they'd won, proven themselves, united the kingdom, or so they thought. A figure appeared at the edge of the circle, cloaked, hooded, moving with purpose. The crowd parted for them instinctively, sensing something wrong. The figure threw back their hood. Marcus. Ava's cousin stood there, his face carved from stone. In his hand was a scroll sealed with wax. "I have a message," he announced. His voice carried across the field. "From the Council of Old Pax, the ones who remember what kingdoms used to be before the Blackthorn line corrupted them with weakness." "Marcus, what are you doing?" Ava felt cold spread through her chest. "What I should have done months ago." Marcus broke the seal, unrolled the scroll. "By ancient law and blood right, I challenge the legitimacy of this bond, challenge the right of the Blackthorn line to rule, challenge everything this kingdom has become." "You're my family," Ava whispered. "I'm Highland Pack first." Marcus's eyes were hard, and the Highland Pack remembers what it means to be strong, to be pure, to refuse bonds that dilute our power. He dropped the scroll. "I invoke the right of severance, not to break your mate bond, to claim the kingdom for wolves who deserve it." The right of severance was older than any living wolf could remember, a challenge that superseded all others. That demanded absolute victory or absolute destruction. There were no rules, no limits, just survival. And Marcus had just used it to declare war on his own blood. "You'll have to kill me," Ava said. Her voice shook. "You know that, right? There's no backing down from the right. One of us dies, or both of us do." "I know." Marcus drew his sword. "I've known for months. Since the moment you completed that bond and became something the old pacts can't accept, something that threatens everything we are. Why? Ava felt tears burning her eyes. Why now? After everything we've survived? Because you're too strong together. Too dangerous. In a generation, maybe two, bonded pairs like you would replace traditional pack structures, would make alphas like me obsolete. Marcus's smile was sad. I can't allow that. Won't allow it. So you'll kill your own cousin to preserve your power? I'll kill the Luna Queen to save my people. It's not personal, Ava. It's survival. Behind Marcus, shadows moved. Dozens of them. Highland warriors, loyal to him, ready to fight. This was the real Phase 4. Not Seleni's suicide mission, not Aldrich's political games. This was family turning against family, blood against blood, the worst kind of betrayal. Ava gripped Riker's hand. Through the bond, she felt his rage, felt him preparing to attack Marcus with everything they had. But she also felt something else. Calculation. Strategy. Marcus had planned this. Waited for them to be exhausted from fighting Kane and the others. Waited until they were wounded and vulnerable. He'd been planning it since the gathering, maybe longer. Every supportive word, every offered alliance, every time he'd claimed to have their backs. All lies, all manipulation, all leading to this moment. Ava felt something break inside her. Not the bond, something deeper. The last shred of innocence that believed family meant something absolute. That blood ties could overcome politics and power. She'd been naive, stupid, had let sentiment blind her to the truth. Marcus was right about one thing. This wasn't personal. It was survival. And she would do whatever it took to survive. Stand down, cousin, she said quietly. Walk away, or I'll put you in the ground. You can try. Marcus raised his sword. Highland Pack, to me! The warriors behind him roared, charged, and the field erupted into war. The Highland warriors hit like an avalanche. Ava had grown up with these wolves, trained beside them, bled beside them. She knew their fighting styles, their strengths, their tells, but that familiarity became a curse the moment they turned those skills against her. Marcus led the charge, his blade singing through the air toward her throat. Ava blocked on instinct, the impact jarring her already wounded arm. Pain exploded through her shoulder, but she pushed through it, twisted, used his momentum against him. They'd sparred 1,000 times as children. She knew he favored his left side, knew he'd compensate with a diagonal slash. His blade opened a line across her ribs. She'd forgotten he'd learned to read her just as well. Beside her, Riker was fighting 3 Highland warriors simultaneously. The bond between them hummed with shared pain, shared fury, shared desperation. But even amplified through their connection, they were outnumbered, exhausted from the fight with Kane, wounded beyond what even the bond could fully compensate for. And Marcus had known it, had timed his betrayal for exactly this moment. Why? Ava gasped as their blades met again. We're family. Family is weakness when it blinds you to truth. Marcus drove her back with a series of brutal strikes. I watched you complete that bond, watched you become something no alpha should become. United, inseparable, dangerous to everyone who values traditional pack structure. So you'd kill me to preserve your power? I'd kill you to preserve our way of life. Marcus's eyes were hard. In 50 years, bonded pairs like you would replace single alphas entirely, would make everything our ancestors built obsolete, would turn wolves into something weak, something that needs another half to be whole. The words cut deeper than his blade. Because underneath the betrayal, underneath the violence, Ava heard truth. Marcus believed what he was saying, believed he was protecting something sacred. That made him more dangerous than any Northern Alliance operative. Those had been enemies, clear, definable. But Marcus was fighting for principles he thought were righteous, and there was no reasoning with that kind of conviction. Ava felt Riker go down behind her, felt his pain spike through the bond as a Highland warrior's blade found his already wounded shoulder. She wanted to turn, wanted to help him, but Marcus was pressing hard, not giving her space to breathe. This is what happens when you rely on someone else, Marcus said. He's your weakness now, your vulnerability. Every injury to him hurts you. Every threat against him compromises your judgment, or it makes me twice as dangerous. Ava dropped low, swept his legs. Marcus stumbled and she drove her claws into his thigh. Blood sprayed hot across her hands. because threatening him means I have nothing left to lose. She spun away from Marcus toward Riker. 3 Highland warriors surrounded him, coordinating their attacks, keeping him pinned. The Bond screamed at her to help him, screamed that he was in danger, that she needed to protect him, but rushing in would get them both killed. Ava forced herself to think past the Bond's panic, forced herself to see the battlefield clearly. Marcus's warriors outnumbered them, but they were spread thin, trying to cover too much ground. The wolves who'd fought for Kane were still watching, uncertain. They'd bent the knee, but that didn't mean they'd fight for her against Highland Pack. She needed to change the momentum, needed to prove that betrayal had consequences beyond just personal revenge. She needed to make an example. Ava shifted. Her wolf exploded forward in a blur of silver fur and rage. She hit the nearest Highland warrior from the side, taking him completely by surprise. Her jaws found his throat before he could scream. The kill was quick, brutal. She dropped the body and turned to the next warrior. This one was ready, blade up, eyes wide with fear. Fear of her, of what she'd become. Good. Let them be afraid. The fight that followed was not elegant, not strategic. It was pure violence. Ava tore through Marcus's warriors like a force of nature, her wolf operating on instinct and fury. Every injury Riker took through the Bond fueled her. Every drop of his blood made her more dangerous. She was defending her mate, her Bond. Her right to exist is something more than tradition dictated, and she would kill anyone who tried to take that away. When she shifted back to human form, 5 Highland warriors lay dead at her feet. The others had backed away, their weapons lowered, their eyes filled with something between terror and awe. Ava stood naked and bloody in the center of the battlefield. Her body was screaming at her, wounds layered on top of wounds, bones cracked, muscles torn. But the Bond kept her standing, kept her conscious, kept her fighting. Marcus was on his knees 10 feet away. Riker stood over him, blade at his throat, breathing hard. The battle had ended while Ava was lost in her wolf's fury. The Highland warriors who remained had surrendered or fled. Kane's wolves had stayed neutral, watching the family destroy itself. And now it came down to this. 3 people. 3 choices. 3 futures. Do it, Marcus said. His voice was steady. You've won. Finish it. Ava walked toward them slowly. Every step cost her. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. But she kept moving until she stood beside Riker, looking down at the cousin who'd tried to kill her. Why should I? She asked quietly. Because mercy is weakness. Because letting me live means I'll try again. Because this is what alphas do to traitors. Marcus met her eyes. Or have you forgotten that in all your talk of new orders and unity? I haven't forgotten anything. Ava crouched down so they were eye level. But I've learned something you never understood. Being alpha isn't about being the strongest. It's not about destroying everyone who threatens you. It's about being strong enough to make hard choices and live with the consequences. Then make your choice. Marcus's jaw was tight. Kill me or let me go, but don't pretend there's a third option. Ava looked at Riker. Through the Bond, she felt his rage, felt him wanting Marcus dead for the betrayal, for the wounds, for the blood of Highland warriors now staining the field. But underneath that rage, she felt something else. Exhaustion, grief. The understanding that killing Marcus wouldn't undo the betrayal, would just create another wound that never fully healed. We're not killing you, Ava said. She stood. But you're not walking away either. What? You wanted to preserve the old ways. Fine. We're invoking the oldest way of all. She looked at the watching crowd. Exile. Marcus of Highland Pack is stripped of his title, his territory, his pack bonds. He walks into the wilderness alone, survives alone, dies alone. Marcus's face went pale. That's worse than death. That's the point. Ava felt something cold settle in her chest. You wanted to teach us about strength? About what it means to stand alone? Now you get to live it. No bond, no pack, no family, just you and the wilderness and every choice that brought you here. You can't. I already did. Ava's voice carried across the field. This is the law of the new order. Betray your pack and you die to them. Not physically, but completely. You become nothing. No one. A ghost walking the territories as a warning to anyone who thinks family is worth less than power. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. The reality of what she'd just done settling over him like a shroud. Being exiled was death, just slower, more painful. Wolves were pack animals. Being cut off from that connection, from the bonds that defined them, was torture. Most exiles lasted a few months before they either went mad or found a way to end themselves. Ava was condemning Marcus to that fate, and she felt nothing about it. That realization scared her more than anything that had happened in the last 6 months. She'd become capable of cruelty, of calculated punishment, of turning off her emotions to make the hard call. Was that strength or corruption? Was she building something better or just becoming another tyrant? She didn't know, couldn't know. All she knew was that showing mercy to Marcus would signal weakness to every other territory watching, would invite more challenges, more betrayals, more blood. So she chose cruelty, chose survival over sentiment, chose the kingdom over her heart. Maybe that made her a monster, or maybe it just made her a ruler. Take him, Ava said to Cain's warriors. They were neutral, would carry out the sentence without bias. Strip him of all rank and possessions, walk him to the border. If he tries to return to any pack territory, kill him. The warriors moved to comply. Marcus didn't fight as they bound his hands, didn't speak as they led him away. But his eyes found Ava's one last time. In them she saw betrayal, rage, and underneath it all, understanding. He'd made his choice, she'd made hers, and now both of them would live with the consequences. When Marcus disappeared into the forest, the remaining Highland warriors dropped to their knees. Not to Ava, to the ground, pressing their foreheads to the dirt in absolute submission. "We failed you, Luna," one of them said. His voice shook. "Failed to stop our alpha when he turned against you. We deserve exile, too." "No," Ava's voice was raw. "You followed your alpha's orders. That's not a crime. But from now on, Highland Pack answers directly to me. No intermediaries, no one who can twist my words into treason." The warriors nodded, still on their knees, still terrified. "Get up," Riker said. His voice was gentler than Ava expected. "You're not prisoners. You're pack. Our pack. But that means something different now. It means being honest even when it's hard. Standing against orders when those orders are wrong. Can you do that?" The warriors looked at each other. Then slowly, one by one, they rose. "We can," the same wolf said. "We will." "Good." Riker swayed slightly. Ava caught his arm, steadying him through the bond. "Then let's go home, or what's left of it." The journey back to the ruined palace took 3 days. Ava and Riker couldn't travel faster. Their injuries were too severe. The bond kept them alive, but it couldn't instantly heal wounds that should have killed them twice over. They moved slowly, supported by warriors, tended by healers at every stop. But they were alive, together, victorious. And that was enough. On the 3rd night, camped in the ruins of what had once been the palace gardens, Ava sat by the fire, watching flames dance against the darkness. Her body ached in ways she couldn't articulate. Every breath hurt. Every movement reminded her of how close they'd come to dying. But underneath the pain, she felt something else. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. The understanding that she'd survived the worst and come through it changed but intact. "You thinking about Marcus?" Riker's voice came from beside her. He'd been silent most of the journey, lost in his own thoughts. Among other things. Ava leaned against him, their shoulders touching. "Do you think I made the right choice? Exiling him instead of executing him?" "I don't know if there was a right choice, just the choice you made." Riker's hand found hers, the one you can live with. "Can I, though? Live with it?" Ava stared at the flames. He was family, blood, and I condemned him to something worse than death because it served my political goals. What does that make me? It makes you a ruler. One who understands that sentiment can't guide every decision, that sometimes you have to hurt the people you love to protect the ones who depend on you. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they felt like confirmation of her worst fear. That power had corrupted her, that surviving had cost her humanity. "I used to think being alpha was about strength," she said quietly, "about being the biggest, the fastest, the most dangerous. But that's not it at all, is it? No. It's about being able to make choices that destroy you and still waking up the next day to make more. It's about carrying weight no one else can see and never putting it down." Riker squeezed her hand. It's about becoming the person your pack needs, even when that person is someone you never wanted to be. Do you ever wish we'd never completed the bond? Never become this? Riker was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes. When the weight gets too heavy. When I look at you and see scars I put there by dragging you into this life. He turned to face her. But then I remember what we've survived, what we've built. And I realize I wouldn't trade this for anything. Not even peace. Ava felt tears burn her eyes. The bond between them pulsed, warm and steady. A constant reminder that she wasn't alone in this. That someone else carried the weight with her, understood the cost. That was worth something, worth everything. I love you, she said. The words felt inadequate, too small for what she actually felt. But they were all she had. I love you too. Riker pulled her close. Always. Even when it's hard. Even when we're broken. Even when the kingdom demands we become monsters. They sat together by the fire, two rulers holding on to each other in the darkness, and let themselves be human for a few more hours before dawn demanded they be legends again. The rebuilding took 6 months. Not just physical reconstruction, though that was monumental. The palace had to be rebuilt from its foundations. New walls, new halls, new throne room designed without the hidden passages and secret chambers that had allowed so many betrayals. But the harder work was rebuilding trust. Convincing the territories that the new order wasn't just rhetoric. The transparency and unity meant something real. Ava and Riker spent those months traveling, visiting every pack, meeting with every alpha, listening to grievances, addressing concerns, proving through action that they meant what they said. It was exhausting, tedious, the kind of work that never made stories or songs. But it was necessary. Slowly, grudgingly, the kingdom began to heal. The Highland Pack integrated under Ava's direct leadership. Kane's Eastern Reach became their strongest ally after he saw how they handled Marcus's betrayal. The other territories fell in line one by one, drawn by the promise of equal voice and transparent governance. Not everyone was happy. Some old wolves still grumbled about tradition, about the proper way things should be done. But those voices grew quieter as the new system proved itself, as decisions made in public forums yielded better results than backroom deals, as territories that had feuded for generations found common ground. Change came slowly, but it came. On the day they reopened the palace, Ava stood in the new throne room and barely recognized herself. Gone was the uncertain girl who'd discovered her mate's betrayal 6 months ago. Gone was the rage-filled warrior who'd fought her way through a coup. What remained was something harder, more complex. A woman who understood that ruling meant carrying contradictions, being both merciful and cruel, both vulnerable and invincible, both human and legend. The scars helped. She'd kept them visible, refused the healer's offers to minimize the damage. Every mark told a story. Every wound was proof that she'd survived something that should have destroyed her. Riker stood beside her, equally transformed. The arrogant young king who'd thought he could protect everyone through deception was gone, replaced by someone who'd learned that trust was built through transparency, that strength came from admitting weakness, that partnership meant being equals even when that equality was uncomfortable. They'd both been broken by the last 6 months, shattered and reformed into something new. Whether that something was better remained to be seen. The coronation ceremony was different from anything the kingdom had seen before. No elaborate rituals, no secret oaths, no private chambers where power was transferred behind closed doors. Instead, every wolf in the kingdom was invited. The ceremony took place in the new palace courtyard under open sky where everyone could witness. Ava and Riker stood before their people without crowns. Those would come later. First came the oaths. "I swear to rule with transparency," Riker said. His voice carried across the silent crowd. "To make no decision in secret that I wouldn't defend in public. To trust my people with truth even when that truth is uncomfortable. I swear to value unity over tradition," Ava continued. "To judge every law by whether it serves the pack or just serves the past. To change what needs changing and preserve what remains sacred." Together they spoke the final oath. "We swear to rule as equals, to share power, to make decisions together, to show this kingdom that strength comes from partnership, not domination. And if we fail these oaths, we grant any pack the right to challenge our rule and take the throne." The last part was unprecedented, dangerous, but necessary. It put accountability into the system, made them answerable to the people they ruled. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some shocked, all understanding that something fundamental had shifted. The crowns came next. Not gold, not jewels. Simple circlets of silver forged from the chains that had bound Aldrich in his cell. A reminder that power unearned or misused would always find its way to imprisonment. When the ceremony ended, when the celebration began, Ava found herself standing on the balcony overlooking the kingdom. The same balcony where she'd stood months ago watching Marcus leave, watching her cousin walk into exile carrying the weight of his choices. She wondered sometimes if he was still alive, if exile had broken him, or if he'd found some way to survive alone. Part of her hoped he was dead, that he'd found peace in ending. But another part hoped he lived, hoped he understood someday why she'd made the choice she did. Maybe that made her weak. Or maybe it just made her human. Riker joined her on the balcony, 2 glasses of wine in his hands. He offered her one. To surviving, he said, to surviving. Ava clinked her glass against his, and to everything that came after. They drank in silence, watching their kingdom celebrate below, watching wolves from different territories mingling, talking, building connections that would have been impossible 6 months ago. It wasn't perfect, probably never would be. There would be more challenges, more betrayals, more moments where they'd have to choose between sentiment and survival. But they'd face those moments together. That was the promise the bond made, the only promise that mattered. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we'd made different choices? Ava asked. If you told me the truth from the beginning, if we'd never completed the bond? All the time, Riker's smile was sad. But I don't think we'd be here. I think we needed to break first. Needed to be shattered so we could rebuild into something stronger. That's a brutal philosophy. It's the only one that makes sense of what we've been through. He turned to face her fully. We're not the same people we were 6 months ago. We're not even the same people we were 3 months ago. We're constantly breaking and reforming, and maybe that's what ruling actually is. Being willing to change, to adapt, to become whatever your people need, even when that transformation destroys who you were. The words settled over Ava like truth, heavy, undeniable. They would keep changing, keep breaking, keep reforming, until eventually they became people they wouldn't recognize. But at least they'd do it together. At least they'd have the bond to anchor them when everything else fell apart. Is it worth it? She asked. The weight, the sacrifice, the constant transformation. Is ruling actually worth what it cost? Riker looked out over the kingdom, at the wolves celebrating, at the territories united, at the future they'd built from ruins and blood and impossible choices. Ask me again in 50 years, he said finally, when we see if what we built actually lasts, if the bonds we forged hold, if the kingdom we imagined becomes reality, and if it doesn't, then at least we tried. At least we gave everything to something bigger than ourselves. That's all any leader can do. Try and hope and keep fighting even when the outcome is uncertain. They stood together watching night fall over Moonfang Kingdom, 2 rulers carrying impossible weight, 2 mates connected by a bond that had nearly destroyed them before making them unbreakable. Below them, the celebration continued. Music, laughter, joy earned through survival. And somewhere in the wilderness, a lone wolf walked through darkness, carrying the weight of his choices. Exiled but alive. Broken, but learning that breaking didn't always mean ending. The kingdom would remember this time, would tell stories about the Luna who defeated a coup, about the Alpha King who completed a bond that shouldn't exist, about the cousin who betrayed blood and paid the price. But the real story was simpler, quieter, less dramatic than the legends would suggest. It was about 2 people who found each other at the worst moment, who destroyed each other and saved each other in equal measure, who learned that love wasn't gentle or easy or destined. It was a choice made daily, a commitment renewed through every battle, a bond maintained through trust and transparency and the willingness to keep trying even when trying felt impossible. That was the story worth telling, not the violence or the politics or the dramatic confrontations, just 2 wolves choosing each other, again and again, until choosing became breathing, became living. The celebration below grew louder. Someone called for the Alpha King and Luna Queen to join them, to dance, to eat, to be part of the joy they'd fought so hard to create. Ava looked at Riker. Ready? Never. His smile was genuine. But let's do it anyway. They descended into the crowd together, hand in hand, equal, united, ready to face whatever came next. Because they were no longer two people pretending to be one. They were genuinely, completely, irrevocably merged. Not in the way that erased individuality, in the way that amplified it, made them more themselves by sharing the burden of existence with someone who understood the cost. The music swallowed them. The crowd welcomed them. And for a few hours, they were allowed to forget they were rulers and just be wolves celebrating survival. When the night finally ended, when the last guest departed and the palace went quiet, Ava and Riker returned to their chambers. The new rooms built to replace what the Northern Alliance had destroyed. Everything was different now. New walls, new furniture, new space that held no memories of betrayal or pain. But some things remained the same. The mate bond humming between them, the trust they'd built through blood and choice, the understanding that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they could rest. Ava collapsed onto the bed, her formal clothes feeling like armor she could finally shed. Every muscle screamed exhaustion, but underneath that she felt peace. Real peace. The kind that came from knowing you'd done everything possible and could finally stop. Riker joined her, pulling her close. They lay together in silence, two bodies sharing warmth and space and breath. "We did it," Ava whispered. "We actually survived." "Yeah." Riker's voice was rough with emotion. "We did. What happens now? Now we live. We rule. We make mistakes and fix them. We break and rebuild. We keep choosing each other until there's no choice left to make." He kissed her forehead. "Sound manageable?" Ava laughed. "Felt good. Felt human. Not even a little bit. Perfect." They fell asleep like that. Tangled together. Exhausted. Scarred. Victorious. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the palace walls, the kingdom they'd fought for settled into an uneasy peace. Territories that had been enemies found common ground. Packs that had feuded for generations began talking. Wolves who'd been taught that strength meant domination learned that maybe partnership was stronger. It wouldn't last forever. Peace never did. Eventually new threats would emerge. New challenges would test them. New betrayals would cut deep. But they'd proven something important. They'd proven that breaking didn't mean ending, that being shattered could lead to something stronger, that the only unforgivable failure was refusing to keep trying. The future was uncertain. The weight would never fully lift. The cost of ruling would keep demanding payment. But Ava Sterling and Riker Blackthorne would face it together, would keep choosing each other, would keep building the kingdom they'd envisioned even when that kingdom seemed impossible. Because that was what the bond meant. Not destiny, not fate, not some cosmic plan that guaranteed success. Just two people committing to the hard work of partnership, of trust, of waking up every day and choosing to keep fighting for something bigger than themselves. That was the real story, the one worth remembering. Not the violence or the drama or the legendary battles. Just two wolves, one bond, one kingdom, and the understanding that sometimes the greatest strength is simply refusing to give up even when giving up would be easier. The moon rose over Moonfang Kingdom, silver and bright and eternal. And in the palace below, two rulers slept peacefully for the first time in 6 months, together, equal, unbroken, ready for whatever dawn would bring.